Chapter 715. Count Levi was overthinking things. In his opinion, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce that the new flyer had personally nurtured had given him a competitor that could compete with him in certain aspects. This caused the new flyer to lose a large amount of profits, which was no different from asking for trouble. But in Su Yi's opinion, it was the complete opposite. "Hey, Freeman, this really makes me sigh in admiration." Su Yi turned over a steel pipe that was about as thick as his wrist, carefully examining it from the outside to the inside several times. He even took a vernier caliper from Freeman's hand to measure the steel pipe, his face full of praise. The craftsmanship of this P2 model steel pipe can be said to have reached or even surpassed the standards of our Chamber of Commerce's steel pipe processing workshop. "Freeman, can you tell me how you did it?" Freeman gave a simple and honest laugh, scratching his head as he replied, "It's nothing much. We just kept raising our requirements." Su Yi nodded. Well said. The so-called craftsmanship was actually the process of constantly increasing one's own requirements to improve. From this P2 model steel pipe, I can see that your Ireland Chamber of Commerce's ability in this type of steel pipe is not inferior to our Chamber of Commerce's. Speaking up to here, Su Yi couldn't help but sigh in admiration. He forcefully patted Freeman's shoulder and loudly laughed. "Do you know, this is something that I've been looking forward to all these years, but I didn't think that your Ireland Chamber of Commerce would be the first to achieve it." No. Chairman Su, you're too kind." Freeman repeatedly waved his hand. Freeman had interacted with Su Yi many times and had also had many in-depth discussions with Su Yi. He was very clear on Su Yi's wish, which was that the magic machine industry couldn't be dominated by the new flyer alone. It would be best if there were other magic machine industry companies that were close to the new flyer, or even better than the new flyer. Freeman was very confused by Su Yi's idea, because there had never been a company or a merchant that hoped that their competitor would become stronger or even surpass them. But Freeman was very clear that this was Su Yi's heartfelt words. If it wasn't like this, he definitely wouldn't have taken the initiative to sell the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's magic machine technology. He could have monopolized it completely, so he would have earned several times more profit than now. Their Ireland Chamber of Commerce being able to have such high achievements in steel pipe casting technology couldn't do without the support of New Flyer. Even in the current Ireland Chamber of Commerce, with Su Yi's permission, they had rented 2 dwarven magic machine engineers from New Flyer, who were in charge of the steel pipe casting technology. The current Ireland Chamber of Commerce's achievements couldn't do without the support of these 2 dwarven magic machine engineers. Of course, it also couldn't do without the support of New Flyer. So Count felt that the Ireland Chamber of Commerce had stolen the market from New Flyer with their own strength, causing New Flyer to lose large amounts of profits. But Freeman was very clear that this was all done by Su Yi on purpose. So Freeman maintained a humble attitude in front of Su Yi. He always felt that everything he had now was because of Su Yi. Otherwise, he would still be a normal farmer in a village outside Bandit City, worrying about his family's livelihood every day. Chairman Freeman hesitated a bit before suddenly speaking. "How about I talk to the Lord City Lord? This steel pipe processing factory should be led by your New Flyer. Our Ireland Chamber of Commerce might not have any problems with the technology, but we are much worse than your New Flyer in other aspects. If your company is in charge, we are willing to do our best to help you." Seeing the complicated look on Freeman's face, Su Yi revealed a faint smile. He shook his head and patted Freeman's shoulder again. "Don't think that much, Freeman. This matter has already been decided. It can't be changed. Count will trust you and your Ireland Chamber of Commerce very much, so he is filled with expectations. Even Her Majesty is paying attention to this matter. If your company can perform well this time, I believe that I can help your company become a first-class company as soon as possible. But there are no buts." Su Yi waved his hand and cut Freeman off. "Freeman, you should know what I'm thinking. I'm very happy that your Ireland Chamber of Commerce is qualified to lead this factory. And I'm very happy. Count Will and Her Majesty 70 are also looking forward to your performance. So this time, whether you want to take this responsibility or not, you can't throw it away. Do you understand what I mean?" Freeman was silent for a bit before slowly nodding. I understand. But, Chairman Sue, if there are any problems with our production in the future, I ask you to help us like before. Sue, he revealed a mouthful of white teeth, revealing a smile that made Freeman feel assured. The two discussed the details of the various steel pipes for a bit before Freeman's expression suddenly changed. Chairman Sue, I heard you mention Her Majesty, so I have a question that I don't know if I should ask or not. What is it? Is it related to Her Majesty? Sue, he asked back. Chairman Sue, have you seen Her Majesty in the past few months? No. Sue, he shook his head. Looking up to think, he found that he hadn't seen 70 in half a year. In this half a year, 70 had only communicated with him a few times through letters and documents. When Sui thought of this, he suddenly felt a bit disappointed and sighed. After 70 took the throne, it was different from before. The friendship between the two of them would become weaker and weaker. They would be no different from normal people sooner or later. Suyi's only hope was that the two of them could peacefully get along and not become enemies in the end. But for this only hope, Sue, you didn't have that much confidence. You haven't seen him in months? Freeman frowned. Freeman knit his brows. I thought that I could obtain some information about Her Majesty from you. Sue, he was a bit confused. What information do you want to know about Her Majesty? Isn't Her Majesty's whereabouts reported in the newspapers every day? With the development of the Lampari Kingdom's economy, there were more and more newspapers in the cities. Fairy, the Lampari Kingdom's newspaper industry was already very developed. Just in Bana City, there wasn't just a single Bana Times newspaper, there were also 4 other small newspapers. In the capital of the Lampari Kingdom, in Anvilmar City, other than Baron Hannes' Lampari Weekly and the Anvilmar Times, there were already over 30 newspapers of different sizes. With so many newspapers being established at the same time, naturally Anvilmar City was filled with all kinds of news. For someone like Her Majesty 70, who was the last person that people paid attention to, she would appear in the newspapers every day. But while some newspapers reported on Her Majesty's government affairs, there were some small newspapers that reported on other things. For example, what kind of clothes Her Majesty was wearing today, what kind of perfume she used, or if there was a new maid by Her Majesty's side. They didn't even let go of anything Her Majesty ate today. In this situation, if anyone wanted to know anything about Her Majesty, they just needed to look through the newspapers. Why would Freeman specially come to ask Sue E? An extremely strange expression appeared on Freeman's face. The problem is, it's already been more than a month, but the newspapers haven't seen any detailed information about Her Majesty the Queen. They only report on some of Her Majesty the Queen's participation in government affairs, but there isn't any other information about Her Majesty the Queen. Sue, he couldn't help smiling. Hey, Freeman, I never thought that you would be such a gossipy person. Then again, it's fine if you gossip about others, but why do you want to gossip about Her Majesty? Freeman shook his head. I just feel it's strange. In the past, there were many newspapers that reported on Her Majesty's life. It said that Her Majesty allowed them to leak this information, saying that it would allow Her Majesty to be closer to us normal citizens. But in the past month, there hasn't been any private information about Her Majesty. Not only do I feel it's strange, almost everyone feels it's strange. Is that so? Sue, he slightly knit his brows, thinking that this situation was indeed a bit strange. Revealing some small gossip about her life to let the citizens feel closer to her was something that Sue E had proposed to 70 before. Now that there wasn't any information about this in a month, naturally it would be strange. After thinking for a while, Sue E still couldn't find a single clue. There was no other way. He didn't see 70 at all during this time, and they rarely contacted each other. There was only a single letter they exchanged private greetings with. The others didn't know what happened to 70, and he also didn't know. Seeing that Sue E really didn't know anything, Freeman hesitated a bit before looking around. He suddenly came to Sue Yi's side and said in a low voice, Chairman Sue, there are several newspapers in the kingdom that have speculated from their own sources. Her Majesty, she should be pregnant. What? Sue E looked at Freeman with wide eyes as his face filled with shock. 70, she was actually pregnant? How is this possible? No, This must be fake. Chapter 716. When Sui left the Ireland Chamber of Commerce's steel pipe factory, he had already calmed down. However, there were countless questions in his mind right now. He had known Freeman for quite a while and knew that he was very cautious, so he definitely wouldn't speak carelessly. Although Freeman had said that he had obtained this information from a few small tabloids, since Freeman had said this, it was clear that he approved of this information and had a certain degree of credibility. If this news was a rumor, then naturally it was fine. But if it was true, Sui's expression became incomparably complicated and strange. This matter, wasn't it too ridiculous? 70 had always been single. The Lampari kingdom had all kinds of guesses about 70's marriage, and there were many people who hoped that Her Majesty would confirm her marriage as soon as possible. It would be best if she could give birth to a child, confirming the next successor of the Lampari kingdom. Because before 70 took the throne, the Lampari kingdom had experienced two upheavals, so no one in the kingdom wanted to see another problem with the succession of the throne. Even if King Eric left behind a son, it was clear that he couldn't inherit the throne. So the most suitable candidate was naturally Her Majesty 70's own child. If 70 decided to get married and publicly announced that she had chosen a man to marry, perhaps the entire Lampari kingdom would be filled with joy. But now that 70 hadn't confirmed her marriage and there was news of her pregnancy, it was hard to predict the reaction of the Lampari kingdom. Even if the atmosphere of the Signs continent was rather open, the nobles' circle was even more chaotic. But on the surface, everyone would try their best to follow tradition and try not to break it. Nobles could have messy private lives before marriage, but this didn't apply to the royal family. As the leading family of a country, the royal family had great power, but they also had great restrictions. Even if 70 was still a princess, it was very troublesome to have a scandal. Not to mention that she was now the queen, the most powerful person in the Lampari kingdom. Now that there was news of her being pregnant before marriage, this was simply explosive. Sui could imagine that once this news was confirmed, the entire Lampari kingdom, and even the surrounding countries would be shocked. The question that countless people cared about the most was the second question in Sui's mind. If 70 was really pregnant, who was the father of the child in her stomach? Sui couldn't figure this out no matter what. He understood 70 very well and knew that with 70's personality, she wouldn't easily fall in love with a man, but once she did, she would be very persistent. And with 70's absolute power and control in the Lampari kingdom, if she really liked a man, she could openly admit it. Sui believed that there wouldn't be a normal man who would reject 70's favor. Not to mention 70's incomparably noble status, just based on her appearance that was only a bit inferior to Steele's and her gentle personality. She was the dream partner of all men. Of course, to Sui, her identity as the queen was a hindrance. Since it was like this, why did 70 hide it? Why did she have to secretly get pregnant? She was the queen of the kingdom. Could it be that she wanted to keep hiding it? Sui couldn't understand why 70 did this. So when he saw Steele, he couldn't help raising his question to Steele. For what reason would a woman be unwilling to reveal the child's father when she is pregnant? Steele looked at Sui in confusion before revealing a smile. What? You finally know the rumors about Her Majesty? Sui was surprised. You know? Of course. Steele revealed a faint smile. Don't forget, I'm not like you, often moving around the Lampari kingdom. Sui nodded. So you're the same as Freeman. Already knew? Because the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's main business, whether it was the other race labor agency or the New Moon Troops performance, they mainly targeted the Lampari kingdom. So Steele was often in the Lampari kingdom. She came more often than Sui. Did you hear it from Freeman? Steele looked at Sui in surprise and slightly knit her brows. He doesn't seem like someone who likes to gossip. So why would he mention this rumor to you? Perhaps I mentioned 70 in front of him. So he thought of this rumor and told me? Steele thought for a bit before shaking her head. Perhaps. Steele, then do you think this rumor is trustworthy? It's not trustworthy. Steele kept shaking her head. However, when Sui let out a sigh of relief, her next words almost made Sui jump up in shock. Because this matter is true, it doesn't matter if it's trustworthy or not. Really? It's actually true? Sue grabbed Steele's shoulder in shock with a look of disbelief. How is this possible? 70 is actually pregnant? Who is the father of this child? You must be joking, right? Steele turned to look at Sue-Yi's hands tightly holding her shoulder. Because Sue-Yi was using too much force, she felt a bit of pain and slightly knit her brows. But she looked at Sue-Yi with a ghost of a smile. Hey, Sue-Yi, what are you so excited for? Even if 70 is really pregnant, you don't need to be this excited, right? Right. Sue-Yi was stunned. After being stunned for a bit, he muttered to himself as he let go of his hands. After a while, he revealed a serious expression and asked Steele, "How are you certain this is true?" Steele rubbed her shoulder and revealed a smile of deep meaning to Sue-Yi. "I saw through it myself. Of course, Her Majesty 70 must know that I can see through it, so her being willing to meet me is equal to telling me." Sue-Yi imagined 70 meeting Steele. When he thought of 70's big belly, he felt that it was very strange. Then, "She didn't mention anything else to you?" Sue-Yi asked. "Anything else? Are you talking about the child's father? It's a pity that Her Majesty 70 didn't say anything and I didn't ask. According to my guesses, she specially met me and revealed this information to me because she wanted me to pass it on to you." Sue-Yi was surprised. Why? If she wanted to tell me this, she could have just directly told me. Why did she have to go through all this trouble? Steele looked at Sue-Yi and revealed a thought-provoking smile. She gave a sigh and shook her head before standing up. "I don't want to talk about this. Her Majesty must have her own considerations for doing this. As for why she did this, it isn't related to me." Sue-Yi looked at Steele, who turned to leave the room in a daze. He could feel that Steele's mood was a bit strange, and her tone was clearly a bit unhappy. Sue-Yi thought about it before patting his head. Damn, he had discussed another woman's pregnancy in front of Steele, and was this nervous. Of course Steele would be unhappy. Not to mention that this person was 70, who had a good relationship with Sue-Yi before. Thinking of this, Sue-Yi quickly stood up and chased after Steele. He took her hand and kissed it. "Steele, sorry." "Sorry?" Steele turned to look at Sue-Yi in surprise. "Why are you sorry?" "It's nothing. I'm just sorry for my carelessness," Sue-Yi said. Steele stopped and looked at Sue-Yi in a daze for a while. She suddenly revealed a complicated smile that was filled with gratitude and helplessness. Then she raised her hands to hold Sue-Yi's face and leaned in to give Sue-Yi a deep kiss. After a while, the two separated while panting. Steele's smile returned to normal, and she softly patted Sue-Yi as she said with a smile, "If you really feel sorry for me, then you have to perform well on stage. This is the most important step for our new Moon Chamber of Commerce. So if you mess it up, I won't be able to forgive you for the rest of my life." Sue-Yi laughed and slapped his chest as he confidently said, "Relax, I'll be fine. With me here, I'll definitely leave a deep impression on everyone. I guarantee that they won't be able to forget this even if they want to." Steele revealed a faint smile and took Sue-Yi's hand again. "Then let's go out." The two held hands as they walked down the hallway, passing several staff members in uniform. Finally, they passed through two curtains and arrived in the center of an incomparably large stage. Looking around, there were many important people from Banta City, the surrounding cities, and even the Lampari Kingdom. There were even people from the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Drake Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, and other countries that had come from far away. They had completely filled the incomparably large Banta City Theater that had been built 3 months ago. When Sue-Yi and Steele came out, everyone's eyes fell onto them with looks of expectation. Today was a joint press conference between the new flyer and the new Moon Chamber of Commerce, announcing to everyone that there was a new product that the two companies had developed together. As for this mysterious new product, Sue-Yi represented the new flyer in giving a single evaluation in the newspaper. With it, your life will become much more colorful. Chapter 717. All the lights in the theater were suddenly turned off, and the entire theater fell into darkness. There was an uproar in the crowd before they calmed down. Everyone stared at the stage in the center without blinking. They believed that since Sue-E had said this, then there would be something unexpected. This was because the new flyer's previous product announcements had never been as grand as this one. What made everyone even more curious was that this new product was being announced together with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. Even if the new Moon Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Steele was Sue-Yi's wife, it shouldn't have anything to do with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce choosing to announce this new product. This meant that this mysterious new product was definitely related to the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. But what did the new Moon Chamber of Commerce do? Other than being responsible for the other race workers in the Lampari Kingdom, the new Moon Chamber of Commerce was mainly responsible for the various businesses related to the new Moon Troupe. But what did these businesses have to do with the magic machines that the new flyer was responsible for? Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. For a moment, the theater fell into silence. In the darkness, where only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard, a faint blue light suddenly appeared from the center of the stage. It lit up the entire stage and also lit up the few rows of audience members closest to the stage. An azure blue light shone from the stage, but it shot upward and scattered, illuminating the empty space above the theater. While everyone was confused, there was a melodious music that came from the light that lit up the stage. Several figures suddenly appeared on the light screen that lit up the stage, dancing to the music. Everyone looked at the figures in the air in shock, and their faces were filled with confusion. These figures were very lifelike and looked no different from real people at first glance. But if one looked carefully, they would find that these people were floating in the air. As the figures sang and danced, it didn't take long for people to tell that they were just illusions floating in the air and not real people. However, because these phantoms were too clear, even the creases on everyone's clothes, the slight swaying caused by the dance, and even the fine hairs on the tails of a few of them could be seen clearly. Therefore, there was no difference between them and real people. Yes, if it was someone who watched the new Moon Troupe's performances, they would instantly recognize that these figures were the main members of the new Moon Troupe. At this moment, the one leading the dance was the other fox girl from the new Moon Troupe who was as famous as Avril, Metali. Everyone stared intently at the dozen or so figures dancing in the air, their hearts filled with doubt. If these silhouettes were all illusions, then how did these illusions come about? There were some knowledgeable people in the audience who had heard of illusion magic before, but would the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce set up an illusion magic array on the stage for this product announcement? Wouldn't that be too wasteful? Then again, what did setting up an illusion magic array have to do with the new product? Could it be that they were going to sell this illusion magic array to others? Then again, they couldn't bring it back even if they wanted to. Under everyone's confusion, the song on the stage ended and the figures gradually stopped dancing. According to everyone's expectations, since the dance had ended, then the figures should have disappeared. But what happened next was once again out of everyone's expectations. Although the music had ended and the figures had stopped dancing, they didn't disappear. Instead, they stopped to chat in groups of twos and threes. Listening to the clear and melodious voices coming from the light screen, and clearly seeing the witty, cheerful, and seductive smiles of the people representing the members of the New Moon Troupe, it was as if he was watching them playing and talking in front of him. After a while, another figure lit up on the edge of the light screen and walked over to the Beastmen girls of the New Moon Troupe. People familiar with the New Moon Troupe could recognize that this figure was the choreographer of the New Moon Troupe, Lillian Sophie. Almost all of the dances of the New Moon Troupe were choreographed by her. Lillian Sophie walked over to the Beastmen girls and clapped her hands. The girls calmed down and looked at her. Afterwards, Lillian Sophie pointed out the mistakes and imperfections in their dance to the Beastmen girls. The Beastmen girls listened attentively, each of them showing a serious expression. At this moment, the light screen suddenly flickered and all the figures on the stage disappeared. What appeared in front of the audience was a scene that seemed to be in the backstage dressing room. There was only one figure in this scene. She was standing by the window of the changing room, staring at a pot of flowers on the windowsill. She had a water bottle in her hand and was currently watering the flowers. While watering, she was muttering to herself. Looking at her expression, it was like she was taking care of a little child. Then the camera changed again, and what appeared in front of everyone was an outdoor scene. This was a small field, and there were 3 beastmen girls moving their arms and legs. They would occasionally jump up and down, as if they were training their bodies. Then the scene changed again. After the scene changed several times, the light screen suddenly dimmed. After a while, a row of large words appeared in the middle of the light screen. The daily life of the new moon troop. The large words lasted for a while, and then the light screen flashed. There were many scenes of the new moon troop on the light screen, but it was different from the performances of the new moon troop. The scenes that appeared on the light screen were all about the daily lives of the new moon troop. It was mainly about the daily lives of the beastmen girls of the new moon troop. Other than the scenes of their hard work and training, it also included the scenes of their leisure and leisure time. It even recorded the happy and troubled lives of the girls. After seeing this scene, the people suddenly discovered that these beastmen girls weren't that far away from them. Besides being beastmen, they weren't that different from ordinary humans. They needed to eat, they needed to sleep, they needed to have fun, and they needed to have troubles. The only difference was that their appearance was different from that of humans. But the beastmen girls of the new moon troop were all carefully selected. They were all beautiful and attracted a lot of attention. Now that they were showing their daily lives in front of everyone, it made people feel that it was fresh, and it made them feel closer to each other. Unknowingly, people began to be attracted by their every move and began to care about the troubles they encountered in life. At the same time, they were happy for the things that made them happy. Occasionally, there would be scenes of 1 or 2 beastmen girls making mistakes in their daily lives. For example, the best dancer, Metali, was very muddle-headed in her daily life. Even when she was walking, she would accidentally bump into a wall. Seeing Metali's absent-minded appearance, bumping into a wall, and then squatting down while holding her head, the people below the stage couldn't help but laugh. This was not a mockery. Instead, it was because they saw a celebrity shining brightly on the stage, dazzling everyone's eyes and making them unable to look directly at her. Yet, she actually revealed such an appearance during normal times. Naturally, they would find it funny and, at the same time, feel close to her. Other than the scenes of the members of the New Moon Troupe, there were also scenes of the other members of the New Moon Troupe. Through these scenes, people found that even though the New Moon Troupe's performances were brilliant on the surface, the work behind the scenes was very difficult. Unknowingly, people were already attracted by the story behind these images. Time quickly passed and finally stopped at the moment when the representative of the New Moon Troupe, the fox girl known as the Sound of Nature, Avril, turned around. Avril seemed to have heard the shout and suddenly turned around. Her beautiful face revealed a pleasantly surprised smile that was very dazzling. At the same time, the foxtail behind her stood up and slightly swayed, showing the surprise in her heart. However, the scene suddenly stopped. After the light screen froze for a while, it dimmed again and another row of words appeared. The daily life of the New Moon Troupe. The first episode has ended. Then the light screen dimmed, and the entire stage fell into darkness again. After a while, the magic lights in the theater lit up, and the entire theater was lit up again. However, at this time, the audience in the theater all had a look of disappointment on their faces, as if they were reluctant to part with him. It's over like this? Is there a mistake? We haven't seen enough yet. What did Avril see? Why is she so happy? Everyone revealed a confused expression as they looked at Sue, E, and Steele, who had reappeared on stage. Actually, what everyone was confused about the most was this new illusion performance. What did it have to do with this mysterious new product? Sue E looked around and felt the attention and confusion in everyone's eyes as he revealed a faint smile. Everyone has seen the performance just now. Aren't you all looking forward to the next story? There was an uproar under the stage. Wasn't this nonsense? Yet he stopped halfway. This was simply suspenseful. There were even some people who couldn't help loudly expressing their thoughts, causing the entire theater to become noisy. Sue E revealed a smile and raised his hands. The theater became silent again as everyone focused on Sue E, waiting to hear what explanation he would give. However, He didn't say anything and clapped his hands. Two beautiful beastmen girls walked out from behind the stage with a rectangular box in their hands. He pointed at the strange-looking metal box and loudly said to everyone, "Let me introduce to everyone. This is the new household magic machine that our new flyer and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce have jointly developed, called the Magic Illusion Projector. If you want to know the daily life of the New Moon Troupe, then you can buy one." Chapter 718. Sui, of course, hoped that the Magic Illusion Projector would sell like hotcakes and quickly reach everyone's homes. It would be like the televisions on Earth, changing the entertainment model of the signs and making the lives of the people of the continent much richer. But the facts were that this was clearly impossible. First, although the Magic Illusion Projector had been developed, it hadn't been mass-produced yet, and the cost control hadn't been done well. It led to the Magic Illusion Projector that was the same as the one announced at the product announcement to cost close to 70 gold coins. The Frestec Chamber of Commerce placed a high value on this high-definition Magic Illusion Projector that was like a real person was playing in front of you. This was because the price of each unit was set at a shocking 150 gold coins. This kind of exaggerated price was not something normal people could afford. Even if the Lampari Kingdom's economy had greatly increasing the income of many families, spending 150 gold coins to buy a Magic Illusion Projector wasn't suitable. So after Sui announced the price at the product announcement, this Magic Illusion Projector didn't immediately sell like the other products announced by New Flyer. Only a few large nobles and large merchants of Banda City were interested in buying it. Other than the price, the most important factor that restricted the Magic Illusion Projector from selling was that Sui and Steel didn't plan on selling it immediately. The reason was very simple. This Magic Illusion Projector wasn't hard to make, but the illusions it projected had a high requirement. This was the first time this kind of program had appeared on signs, so there was a lack of talent. Sui had only used his experience on Earth and experimented several times before deciding to use a documentary for the first time. This was a program that introduced the daily lives of the New Moon Troupe. However, just to make a short documentary that was less than 40 minutes in length, it took a full month of preparation. The Beastmen girls of the New Moon Troupe had a lot of experience performing in front of people, but this was their first time participating in this kind of setup, so they didn't know what to do. If Sui had not repeatedly instructed them to act as they usually did and do what they were supposed to do, the filming of the documentary would have been extremely awkward. There was still a long way to go if they wanted to have a variety of programs like the ones on Earth. But no matter what, the success of this documentary was very meaningful to Sui. This meant that the signs would soon have a form of entertainment similar to that on Earth through the illusion magic array obtained from the Azhar tribe. This would make this world closer to Earth. At the same time, although this product announcement didn't cause the Magic Illusion Projector to immediately sell, there were two other good effects. First, it allowed many people to recognize the Beastmen girls of the New Moon Troupe through this documentary. After the product announcement, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had set up a Magic Illusion Projector in the busiest part of Banda City's new district. It would play the first episode of the New Moon Troupe's daily life every day. Through these vivid scenes, the people of Banta City became more and more familiar with the Beastmen girls of the New Moon Troupe, causing their popularity in Banta City to soar. According to Steele's plan, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce would set up similar magic illusion projectors in Anvilmar City and the other large cities of the Lampari Kingdom. They would also broadcast this documentary, allowing the people of the Lampari Kingdom to understand the New Moon Troupe more. Other than the second episode of the New Moon Troupe's daily life that was being filmed, according to Suyi's suggestion, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce was planning on creating a series of movies like the television dramas on Earth. They planned on using these magic illusion projectors to broadcast them. According to the model that Sui proposed, these series of movies would only be broadcast in the early stages. If one wanted to watch them after that, they would have to buy a ticket to a theater or buy a magic illusion projector and the corresponding magic array module to watch them at home. Of course, with the new Flyer's research on the magic illusion projector, Su Yi's final goal was to develop a smaller version of the magic illusion projector. He would also reduce the cost of the magic illusion projector and lower the price, ensuring that most families could afford it. But if one had to seriously compare it, this magic illusion projector wasn't like a television, it was more like a video recorder. As for the videotape, it was an illusion magic array module that recorded the various illusion magic videos. The second was the deep cooperation with the Azhara tribe. This magic array was learned from the Azhara tribe. When developing this magic illusion projector, Su Yi didn't kick away the Azhara tribe. Rather, he took the initiative to ask Elder Undine for a cooperation. In the end, according to the agreement between both sides, Elder Undine sent out 5 elves from the Azhara tribe. 2 of them entered the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, specializing in magic array research. The other 3 entered the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, being in charge of the magic illusion projector-related work. The New Flyer and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce signed a cooperation agreement with the Azhara tribe. According to the agreement, as long as the New Flyer sold a magic illusion projector, they would give the Azhara tribe a gold coin as a bonus. Every time the New Moon Chamber of Commerce made a profit from the magic array, they would also give 5% to the Azhara tribe. When Elder Undine first taught Steele the magic array, she didn't think too much about it. She never thought that because of this inadvertent magic array, the Azhara tribe would receive a profit. It really was unexpected, but she didn't reject this profit. As an elder of the Azhara tribe, how could she not see that Su Yi wanted to use this bonus to deepen the relationship and cooperation between them? This was exactly what she wanted, so how could she reject it? Of course, the main cooperation project between the New Flyer and the Azhara tribe wasn't in this area, but rather in the Kingdom of Ruhr. At the end of October, a road was built to the south of the Principality of Constantine that led to the Kingdom of Ruhr. This road also connected to the cliff that was the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Principality of Constantine. This allowed the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Principality of Constantine to have an important road in the north and south. Just like the Stru Road in the north that connected to the Moon Shadow tribe, the second line of the Stru Road in the south also connected to an elven tribe in the Kingdom of Ruhr. It was the Azhara tribe, and because of this road, the Azhara tribe was finally exposed in front of everyone. The people of the Kingdom of Ruhr finally discovered that there were elves in their kingdom as well. Moreover, it was an extremely ancient tribe with a large population of elves. This discovery made the people of the Kingdom of Ruhr excited for a long time. There were even many people who traveled thousands of miles just to see the Azhara tribe up close. But it was a pity that even though Elder Undine had decided to let the Azhara tribe reappear in front of human society, it didn't mean that she would truly open up the entire Azhara tribe to all humans. The humans who came to visit the Azhara tribe could only see some hazy illusions in front of the illusion array, but they couldn't see what was going on. And not long after the news of the Azhara tribe spread in the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Kingdom of Ruhr suddenly announced to the public that the area around the Azhara tribe was designated as the Elven territory. Outsiders were not allowed to enter without the permission of the Azhara tribe. Once this news was announced, it immediately caused an uproar. This was the territory of humans. Why was it designated as the Elven territory? It wasn't the time before the racial war when the elves had absolute control over the continent. Why would humans make special concessions for the elves? Then the Kingdom of Ruhr explained this matter. The Kingdom of Ruhr stated that it was because thousands of years had passed since the racial war that humans had absolute control over the signs. On the other hand, the elves had become a rare race in the signs. Since this was the case, why not give the elves some space so that they could peacefully coexist with humans? In this announcement, King Tarek questioned on behalf of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Ever since the racial war, the dragons and winged people have never been seen in the signs. The halflings only exist in legends. Although the elves can still be seen occasionally, there aren't many of them left. If this continues, the elves may completely disappear from this continent. I'm afraid that the orcs and dwarves will gradually disappear after that. It's good that humans are ruling over the continent, but do you want us humans to be the only ones left on this continent? This continent is lonely, because we humans won't be able to find another intelligent race other than ourselves. Since we've already ruled over the continent, why can't we be more tolerant and give the other races some space to live? In the past, when the elves ruled over the continent, and even before that, when the winged people ruled over the continent, they didn't exterminate the other races. If they can do it, why can't we humans do it? We want to prove to other races that we humans are a tolerant race, a magnanimous race that can tolerate other races. Chapter 719. When this announcement was made, there were both positive and negative comments. Those who agreed felt that King Tarek was right. Since humans were the rulers of the continent, they should be more tolerant and give the other races space to live, allowing everyone to coexist peacefully. Those who opposed felt that if they weren't of the same race, their hearts would be different. No matter how good humans were to the other races wouldn't coexist peacefully with humans. When the elves ruled the continent before, although they didn't exterminate the other races, they weren't that friendly to them. At least when the humans rose, the elves suppressed them in many ways. If it wasn't for the humans developing too quickly and gaining control of the continent through the race wars, no one could have predicted what would have happened. But no matter what kind of opinion it was, it couldn't affect King Tarek's decision. The Kingdom of Ruur's Southwest Elven Special Zone was established, which was an opportunity for many normal people. In the past, the elves rarely appeared in the human world, so there were rumors in many places that the elves had completely disappeared from the continent. Then, with the appearance of the new flyer, the elves began cooperating with the humans through the new flyer. This allowed the humans to confirm that the elves hadn't disappeared and were still active on the continent. The first reaction of most humans wasn't panic, but rather pleasant surprise. Now that there were so few elves, and the humans had controlled the continent for thousands of years, could it be that they were still afraid of the elves fighting back? So when it came to the elves, most humans were curious. When Agnes appeared in Banna City for the first time and caused a stir, it was because of this curiosity. Now that the Kingdom of Ruur suddenly announced an elven special zone, most humans felt that it was a bit novel. They weren't like the people who opposed it, feeling that it was a hidden danger to humanity. In the end, if the elves were that powerful, they wouldn't have been taken from the control of the continent by the humans, right? Hashtag, because the southern part of the Kingdom of Ruur was similar to the Principality of Constantine. Even if it was higher above sea level and the climate wasn't as warm as the Principality of Constantine at the beginning of November, it didn't feel like early winter like the other parts of the continent, and it was still warm and comfortable. In such a climate, the efficiency of the workers' work was naturally the highest. In less than half a month, the Rudsun Kingdom's Elven Special District in the Southwest Province had built foundations of houses, with houses rising from the ground one by one. If one were to observe carefully, they would find that the foundations of these houses were completely different from the foundations of most human houses. These houses were built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, according to the blueprints provided by the Azhara tribe. They were built for the elves to live in and had a distinct elven style. After the Kingdom of Ruur officially declared this area as a special elven zone, Elder Undine immediately contacted the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce through Sue E. and invited the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to help the Azhara tribe build such a house. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce didn't know that the Azhara tribe was willing to do this, but Sue E. already knew her intentions from his private conversation with Elder Undine. Just like Elder Lucia of the Night Song tribe and Elder Lysania of the Moonshadow tribe, Elder Undine also agreed to cooperate with the humans. That was why she reached an agreement with the Kingdom of Ruur through the new flyer and finally obtained such a piece of land as the exclusive territory of the elves. But unlike Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania, Elder Undine clearly didn't intend to leave the fate of the Azhara tribe in the hands of the new flyer. Although she had a close cooperation with the new flyer, Elder Undine had her own plans. The reason why she had the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce build these elven-style buildings that were rarely seen in the signs was to show that the Azhara tribe intended to face the humans head-on. After these houses were built, there would be a total of more than 800 houses, with more than 2,000 elves temporarily living there. Such a scale was similar to a small town in human society. That's right, a small town was about to be built here, a special elven town. Elder Undine, if you really intend to gradually develop this place into an elven city, just having houses is far from enough. The Omrit Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Cruz looked at the busy workers in the distance before turning to speak to Elder Undine beside him. A complete city, in addition to the residents, must have all kinds of shops, restaurants, government offices, and police stations. Most importantly, it must be able to provide enough places for the residents to work, such as all kinds of workshops and even factories. Elder Undine smiled and nodded. I understand. When I was discussing this matter with Chairman Su mentioned this to me. According to the agreement between me and Chairman Su, our Azhara tribe will cooperate with a new flyer to jointly build 2 magic machine factories outside the city. Magic machine factories? President Cruz looked at Elder Undine in surprise. He wasn't surprised that Elder Undine would cooperate with a new flyer, nor was it strange that the Azhara tribe would jointly build magic machine factories with a new flyer. But wouldn't this mean that this place belonged to the elves, such as a large amount of human aura entering? Wouldn't this go against Elder Undine's wish to make this place exclusive to the elves? Elder Undine glanced at President Cruz and seemed to have guessed what he was thinking. She smiled and said, "These 2 factories, from the managers to the ordinary workers, will all be filled by our clansmen. We won't employ humans." Oh, President Cruz nodded. He thought that although the Night Song tribe and New Flyer had cooperated in the plastic processing factory, as well as the Moon Shadow tribe and New Flyer's fertilizer processing factory, although they were mainly controlled by the elves, there were many human factors involved. This Elder Undine was more thorough than the Night Song tribe and Moon Shadow tribe. Of course, this had nothing to do with him. What he cared about was the construction of these 2 factories. Of course, when building these 2 factories, we will give priority to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. After all, in this regard, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce has a lot of experience, right? Elder Undine's words with a gentle smile made Chairman Cruz feel relieved. President Cruz laughed and patted his chest as he confidently said, "Please be assured, Your Excellency, Elder, our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce doesn't just have a lot of experience in building factories, we even have a lot of experience in building cities. If you're willing to trust us, I can promise you that Azhara City will be built in a way that you'll be satisfied with." Elder Undine nodded with a faint smile, but she didn't say anything else. There wasn't even a small town here yet, so it was too early to talk about building a city. Of course, she didn't deny what President Cruz said. The current Bana City had already become the benchmark for the surrounding countries. Although the expansion of Bana City was mainly planned by Su, the concrete details were all done by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. So when President Cruz said that they had a lot of experience in building cities, he wasn't bragging at all. The 2 continued to discuss the construction of the houses for a while. Su, and Agnes, who had been patrolling the construction site in the distance, came over together. Su, came here to discuss the next step of their cooperation with Elder Undine, and Agnes came with him because she represented the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe. Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania were very happy and supportive of the Azhara tribe's willingness to integrate into human society. The most important thing was that they were willing to cooperate with the new flyer. Letting Agnes represent the 2 tribes not only meant that they supported the Azhara tribe as elves, but also because Agnes was one of Suyi's wives, they also supported the idea of the new flyer. To put it simply, Agnes had already become the link between the elves and Su. She had already played a part of the role that Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania wanted her to play. Seeing the 2 come closer, Elder Undine's eyes fell onto Agnes' stomach and paused for a bit. Then she looked at Su, and revealed a smile with deep meaning. Chairman Su, although there are precedents of humans and elves being together, because of the difference in races, it isn't easy to give birth to a half-elf. If you don't mind, our tribe has some information on this. You can study it. Perhaps it will be of help to you and Agnes. Suyi's old face turned red, and he couldn't help coughing twice. since Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania had decided to give Agnes to him. It had already been close to a year. Although Sue had some resistance before, after being with Agnes all day, and still not showing any signs of opposition and even doing her best to facilitate it, Sue and Agnes were officially together in the end. It had already been half a year since the two of them were together, but Agnes didn't have any special reaction. This made Sue wonder if it was because the biological structure of the elves was different from humans, so there was a problem in this area. Now that Elder Undine suddenly mentioned this, even if Sue felt a bit awkward, he still honestly nodded and expressed his thanks to Elder Undine. "All right, Elder Undine. Being able to have a child with Agnes is also my hope. Thank you for your help. I will definitely properly study this information." Elder Undine looked at the blushing Agnes on the side, and her heart was filled with surprise. The elves and humans were different races, so normally speaking, Agnes shouldn't be blushing because of this. But now that she had this kind of reaction, it could be seen that she was already very close to humans. From this, it could be seen just how much influence Sue, this human, had on her. The scene of her meeting with Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania flashed in her mind. Thinking of the affirmation and praise the two elders had for Sue, Elder Undine suddenly gave a soft sigh. "Chairman Sue, the child between you and Agnes might be the first half-elf in history to be officially recognized and accepted by both sides." Chapter 720. The history of the elves and humans coexisting on the Signs was over 5,000 years. In these 5,000 years of history, the relationship between the elves and humans had never been harmonious. When the elves first controlled the continent, other than a few races, the elves considered all the other races to be inferior and didn't put them in their eyes at all. Humans were not an exception. With the outbreak of the race war, after the humans controlled the continent, the elves gradually disappeared from the continent. The relationship between the humans and elves became even more tense. Under normal circumstances, there was no chance of the two races marrying at all. But there were exceptions to everything. In these 5,000 years of history, whether it was when the elves controlled the continent or when the humans controlled the continent, there had always been examples of elves and humans marrying. But these marrying between races had always met with strong opposition from both sides. The elves opposed it because they felt that marrying with humans would stain their noble elven bloodline, and the humans opposed it because they felt that humans were betraying their own race. This caused the half-elves born from a union of humans and elves to be discriminated against by both races. It caused the half-elves to have a low status on the Signs, and they rarely received official recognition. Elder Undine said that the child born from Sue, and Agnes will be the first half-elf in the history of the Signs to be recognized by both sides. But this was definitely not a lie. Of course, this was also related to Sue, and Agnes' status. Although Sue status in human society could not be considered the highest, with his status as the chairman of a new flyer and his strength as a great magician, there weren't many people in human society that had the right to criticize him. No matter who he married with, it was impossible for humans to look at his child differently. As for Agnes' side, actually comparing it, the humans were much more tolerant of the half-elves compared to the elves. This was because in the eyes of most elves, marrying with a lowly race like humans was a kind of disgrace. The appearance of the half-elves was equal to this disgrace, so naturally they would be discriminated against by the elves. However, Agnes was the one that the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe had recommended, hoping that she could marry Sue. Or to put it more directly, the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe wanted Agnes and Sue to marry as soon as possible and give birth to a child that belonged to them. This would allow the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe to have a close relationship with Sue, or perhaps with the new flyer. To put it bluntly, this could be considered a political marriage with a very clear purpose. Since it was like this, it was hard to say what the other elves would think, but at least the half-elves born by Agnes and Sue would not be discriminated against in the Night Song tribe or the Moon Shadow tribe. As for the Azhara tribe, Elder Undine looked at Sue, whispering in Agnes' ear, and then looked at Agnes' blushing face, revealing a smile of praise on her face. She was clear on Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania's plans, and she agreed with them. But through her observations over the past few days, she was certain that no matter what the meaning behind Sue, E, and Agnes' union was, at least Agnes and Sue, E were happy. It was clear that Agnes truly liked Sue, E, and wasn't forced to marry Sue, E because of Elder Alicia's orders. And Sue, E also treated Agnes with sincerity, not being perfunctory because of the meaning behind this union. It was because she could see this that Elder Undine's affirmation of Sue, E deepened. A human who could treat the elves with sincerity like this. It was no wonder Elder Alicia and Elder Lysania praised him so much. Of course, Elder Undine's acknowledgement of Sue E mainly came from Sue Yi's sincere support for the Azhara tribe. The reason why the Kingdom of Ruhr would take the risk of being criticized and make this a special elven region was because Sue E represented the new flyer in giving the conditions to King Ruhr. Not only would the new flyer transfer more household magic machine-related technology to the Kingdom of Ruhr, helping the Kingdom of Ruhr establish a more complete household magic machine industry. They would also give the Kingdom of Ruhr more support in many projects. The most important thing that made the Kingdom of Ruhr make their decision was the other condition that the new flyer agreed to. That was to transfer some military magic machine technology to the Kingdom of Ruhr. Before this, other than the new flyer, only the Lampari Kingdom had a small part of the military magic machine technology because of their close relationship with the new flyer. The surrounding countries had already realized the terrifying might of the military magic machines through the Lampari Kingdom Civil War, the Principality of Constantine Civil War, as well as the several battles between the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom. So naturally, they were very interested in the military magic machines. Although they could buy various military magic machines from the new flyer, compared to buying them, it was more reliable to have the technology to make them themselves. So whether it was the Lampari Kingdom that had a small part of it, the Kingdom of Ruhr that didn't have any, the surrounding countries, or even the enemy of the Lampari Kingdom, the Sac Kingdom that had conflicts with the new flyer, they were also very interested in the military magic machine technology. However, the new flyer had always held this technology very tightly, not releasing a single bit. The other countries were very helpless about this, but they couldn't do anything to the new flyer. Now that the new flyer was willing to transfer some military magic machine technology to the Kingdom of Ruhr, King Tarek was naturally willing to agree to any condition that Sue E put forward, not to mention setting up a special elven region. Even if Sue E directly took some land from the Kingdom of Ruhr, King Tarek would immediately agree. As for New Flyer's request of the Kingdom of Ruhr to open up their mineral market to the new flyer, it wasn't that important compared to this. Then again, even if Sue E didn't rely on this matter to raise this condition, just based on the things the Azhara tribe had, King Tarek was already prepared to agree to the condition that the new flyer had. In short, now that the new flyer, the Azhara tribe, and the Kingdom of Ruhr had reached a three-way cooperation, the Kingdom of Ruhr had obtained an important part of the military magic machine technology. The Azhara tribe had obtained private territory and some support from the Kingdom of Ruhr, while also obtaining the chance to cooperate with the new flyer. As for the benefits that the new flyer obtained, Your Excellency Elder, I think that you should have seen the magic illusion projectors that were sent last time, right? Sue, E, and Elder Undine were discussing the gnomes before changing the topic. What do you think after seeing those illusions? The corner of Elder Undine's mouth rose slightly. It's very interesting. Chairman Sue, I never thought that you would actually use the magic illusion array for this kind of thing. I have to admit that you humans are indeed the most creative out of all the races. President Cruz on the side laughed and shook his head. No, Your Excellency Elder, you're wrong. It's not that all of us humans are creative. It's Chairman Sue who is creative. I don't dare to speak about other aspects, but when it comes to magic machines, I think that all of the other humans added together can't compare to Chairman Sue. Cruz, you're exaggerating. Sue, he shook his head with a smile. I just think about this a bit more, so sometimes I have strange ideas in my head. Thank you. President Cruz rolled his eyes. Then why don't I have these strange ideas in my head? Sue E revealed a faint smile. thinking that if you had these strange ideas like me, then I would have to wonder if you also transmigrated from Earth. Your Excellency Elder, since even you find it interesting, then I'm certain that this magic illusion projector will be welcomed by everyone on the continent. Not just humans, but all races. Or it could be said that this kind of model will be welcomed. And I believe you. Elder Undine gently nodded. Sue-E paused before continuing. When I discussed the details of our cooperation before, you said that your tribe had some special magic and wanted to cooperate with our new flyer to develop some interesting magic machines. So, of course, there's no problem. But after seeing this magic illusion projector, I had another idea. Oh, what idea? This time, the one who couldn't wait to ask was President Cruz. Sue-E smiled and turned to look at the elven town that was still under construction. He raised his hands and drew a circle, as if he wanted to enclose the entire town. Your Excellency Elder, don't you think that it's a pity to leave this town like this after it's built? Elder Undine slightly knit her brows. Chairman Sue, what do you want to say? Sue-E turned around again and looked at Elder Undine with a serious expression. Your Excellency Elder, if you really want the elves to integrate with us humans, then it's not advisable to continue hiding in the illusion array, but it's also not advisable to live in this elven town and refuse to let humans in. I think that you should open up a bit and open this place to humans. Let humans know more about you elves. This way more humans will accept you. Elder Undine thought for a bit and didn't say anything, but instead asked, then Chairman Sue, what do you think we should do? It's very simple. Sue-E turned around again and looked at the busy construction site. He raised his voice and said, according to my idea, let's turn this place into a film and entertainment base. What do you think? Film and entertainment base? Elder Undine and President Cruz looked at each other. This word, individually, they knew each word, but when put together, what did it mean? Chapter 721. Using the power of the magic industry to drive a new entertainment industry in signs wasn't something Sue-E came up with on a whim. When he first transmigrated to this world and felt that this world's entertainment was extremely poor compared to Earth, Sue-E already had the idea of using magic to change the entertainment model of this world. The magic piano model he made in the Sun Kaiser Academy was a small experiment. Later, with the creation of the new flyer and the popularization of magic machines on a large scale, Sue-Yi's idea became stronger and stronger. It was just that he couldn't find a good and suitable idea to push this matter forward. This time, because of the illusion magic array he learned from Elder Undine, after developing the magic illusion projector, Sue-E was inspired and immediately extended countless ideas from the entertainment industry on Earth. Building a film and entertainment base would make it more convenient to shoot more illusion films. As for where this film and entertainment base would be built, after some consideration, Sue-E decided to cooperate with the Azhara tribe and build it here. Firstly, the illusion magic array was learned from the Azhara tribe, so when building the film and entertainment base here, when shooting illusion films, it would be much more convenient to use the Azhara tribe's mastery of the illusion magic array. Secondly, this could be considered as an attempt by Sue-E to strengthen the relationship between the Azhara tribe and human society and to promote further integration between the elves and humans. According to Sue-Yi's plan, if everything went well, this film and entertainment base would inevitably become a very famous place in the future. It would attract the attention of countless people just like the film and entertainment bases on Earth. The Azhara tribe wasn't ready to welcome a large number of humans yet. But as long as this film and entertainment base was built, as the illusion films became more and more popular, the Azhara tribe would sooner or later accept the participation of humans and truly integrate with human society. After explaining to Elder Undine in detail the role of this film and entertainment base and the various benefits it could bring to the Azhara tribe, Elder Undine pondered for a moment, but didn't immediately agree. Instead, she said that she would seriously consider it. Sue-E was very satisfied with this answer. Having been in contact with the elves of the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe for a long time, Sue-E believed that he knew the elves very well. The elves were generally arrogant. If they were unwilling to do something, they would definitely reject it without hesitation. Since Elder Undine had promised to consider it, it meant that she was already tempted. As for how to persuade him, that would be left to Steele. After all, Sue had only made suggestions regarding the film and entertainment base and the promotion of the entire science entertainment industry. The specifics were left to Steele and her new Moon Chamber of Commerce. As for Sue himself, of course, he had to focus more on New Flyer and the development of the magic industry. Through the cooperation of the Azhara tribe and the Kingdom of Ruhr, the biggest benefit that New Flyer obtained was that the Kingdom of Ruhr had greatly increased the share of mineral resources they provided to New Flyer. This greatly satisfied the Frestack Chamber of Commerce's increasing demand for products. With the Frestack Chamber of Commerce expanding their production scale and popularizing the automatic production magic machines, the Frestack Chamber of Commerce's production capacity quickly increased. In the final month of year 3785, the Frestack Chamber of Commerce had produced a total of 7,219 variable temperature magic air conditioners. Compared to the 3,105 of this year's first month, their production had more than doubled. The Xinfei brand household magic machines didn't need to worry about sales in the surrounding countries. They could sell as much as they produced. Now that their production had greatly increased, naturally their profits had greatly increased. In the final month, New Flyer had earned a net profit of 1,130,000 gold coins from the household magic machines. Whether it was compared to the beginning of the year or the same period last year, this was a large increase. At the end of the year, New Flyer's total profit for December had reached a shocking 2,430,000 gold coins. Calculating the total profit for the year, it easily broke the prediction of 20 million gold coins at the beginning of the year, reaching 2,670,000 gold coins. With such terrifying profits and shocking profits, it meant that the Frestack Chamber of Commerce had become a first-class company in the surrounding countries, surpassing countless old companies. In terms of influence, New Flyer was even more outstanding. Whether it was the Lampari Kingdom that had a deep relationship with New Flyer, the Kingdom of Ruhr that had recently deepened their cooperation, the Drake Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, and the other small countries, or even the Sac Kingdom that had conflicts with New Flyer before, they all rushed to cooperate with New Flyer. Even if he didn't cause a stir in these countries with a stomp of his foot, at least the words he said right now were things that no one could ignore in these countries. Not to mention that New Flyer had a large influence on these countries with the magic machine industry. Just based on New Flyer itself, it was already a power that couldn't be ignored. Because of the conflict with Count Wine and the loss from the Sac Kingdom's sneak attack, he had greatly increased the investment in New Flyer's guards after stabilizing the situation in the Principality of Constantine. At the end of the year, the New Flyer's guards had gone from just over 2,000 people to over 6,000 people. Among the extra 4,000 people, there were 800 dwarven warriors, 1,500 beastmen warriors, and the rest were human warriors recruited from various places. As for the elven warriors, although there were quite a few elves from the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe that responded to the New Flyers' recruitment, they didn't join the New Flyers' guards. Rather, they joined Su Yi's subordinates, being considered Su Yi's personal guards. There weren't many elven warriors, only 300 of them, but because the elven warriors were known for their individual strength in the signs, to many people, they were much stronger than the 800 dwarven warriors and the 1,500 beastmen warriors. So just based on the warriors of various races that the New Flyers guards had and Su Yi's 1,000 personal guards, the New Flyer had a strength that couldn't be ignored. And with the military magic machines that the New Flyer made, as well as the powerful understanding of these military magic machines that they had trained for a long time, their battle strength was naturally even more terrifying. In the surrounding countries, there was a common understanding. Even if the New Flyer only sent out 1,000 guards, it would be enough to easily defeat 10,000 soldiers from the other countries. This was because the guards of the Xinfei merchants had already surpassed this era. They weren't on the same level as the armies of the other countries. But in Su Yi's eyes, this was far from enough. Everyone look, these red dots are the islands that the guard fleet has discovered on the endless seas that are worth developing. There are a total of 37 of them. In the conference room of the New Flight Commerce main base, Sue-Yi was standing in front of a giant wooden board, pointing at a giant map on it as he spoke. According to Leslie's report, these islands have all kinds of good mineral resources and rich magic materials, so they're worth developing. The most important thing is that these islands aren't under anyone's control. Hines, who was sitting in the first seat on the right, laughed and said, "Of course. These islands are at least a few hundred kilometers away from the coast. Which country would be so bored as to come so far and develop them? Not mentioning anything else, just transporting people and goods is very risky, so the cost is too high." Sue-Yi nodded, "But this isn't a problem for us. Now that we have 5 large transport magic ships, we can easily transport people and goods to these islands. But we have a serious problem, which is that we don't have enough people." Everyone in the conference room looked at each other with helpless looks. Even if the company had been recruiting workers since last year, because of the strike, Sue-Yi had fired 18,000 workers at once, causing the company to suffer heavy losses. Even now, they still hadn't been able to replenish their losses. The new flyer's production capacity had increased, and the most important reason was that Sanchely had made a breakthrough with the automatic production magic machines, which replaced many of the jobs that needed manpower. But there were many steps in the production of magic machines that couldn't be replaced by the automatic production magic machines, so the new flyer was still suffering from a lack of manpower. Moreover, the lack of manpower that Sue-Yi mentioned wasn't just the workers, but also the guards. To develop on these islands that were several hundred kilometers away from the coast and over 1,000 kilometers away from the new flight commerce main base, it was necessary to arrange guards. But to arrange guards for 37 islands, even if they only arranged 100 guards on each island, they would need close to 4,000 guards. If they really arranged this, what about the defenses of the new flight commerce main base, the transport fleet, and the factories and other places? These places also needed large amounts of manpower and were indispensable. The manpower problem can't be solved in a short period of time. So for this situation, I've decided to use another method to solve it. Sue-Yi continued. Everyone focused and looked at Sue-Yi. Sir President's ideas would often be a little whimsical, making people feel that it was inconceivable. It would even make people wonder if he was crazy. However, it had been proven many times that his ideas would always have a good effect, and the final result would always be good. Since it isn't realistic to send enough guards to each island, then we'll give up on this idea. My plan is to set up defensive measures on these islands, but not to assign specific personnel to guard them. As for the main guards, they will be placed in the guard fleet. Although we currently have a guard fleet led by Leslie, that is far from enough. My request for the guard fleet is that they need to be able to control this sea area. Specifically, I want this sea area to become our new flyer's back garden. The final goal is to use this chain of islands and the guard fleet to control this sea area, turning this sea area into our new flyer's sea kingdom. Sue-Yi slapped the map of the sea area on the wooden board, and the expressions of everyone in the conference room changed. Sir Chairman's ambition wasn't a bit too big. Chapter 722. Whether Sue-Yi's ambition was big or not, it wasn't a problem for the other people of the new flyer. It was even the opposite. The high-level members of the new flyer were more willing to know that their Sir Chairman had this kind of ambition. This was because from another angle, ambition was also called having great ambitions. Compared to following a Sir Chairman who didn't have any ambition and only had goals in front of him, of course they wanted to follow a Sir Chairman who had great ambition and long-term goals. Only like this could the new flyer maintain its current situation and quickly develop. Not only would it become a first-class company in the surrounding countries, it would also become a first-class company in the signs. The stronger the new flyer became, the more shocking benefits the high-level members of the company would receive. Not to mention that even if they didn't consider benefits, just by following Sir Chairman and achieving the goal of spreading magic machines across the continent, wasn't that already enough to attract people's hearts? The last month of year 3,875 quickly passed. After the New Year's, the new flyer began recruiting large amounts of workers again. This wasn't strange. The new flyer had been desperately recruiting workers in the past 2 years and had never relaxed their demands. But this time's recruitment was different from before. It was mainly focused on recruiting workers in the resource-gathering industry. Moreover, there was a very clear condition in the recruitment, which was that the workers had to be willing to leave their homes and work in places that were over 1,000 kilometers or even 2,000 kilometers away. At the same time, the new flyer stated that the initial conditions of this job would be very hard, so it wasn't easy to go home. They had to be able to endure the hardships and the loneliness. This requirement attracted the attention of many people because the new flyer had given their employees very good conditions. But now it was clear that this job was very hard, which was very strange. But these conditions, compared to the salary advertised in the newspapers, it didn't seem that important. At least 300 gold coins a year. Although this salary wasn't considered high in Bana City, whether it was in the Lampari Kingdom or the Kingdom of Ruhr, it was considered a high salary. It had to be known, since the new flyer fired 18,000 workers at once. It caused the other companies to compete for these workers, raising the average wage of the magic machine industry to a shocking level. But for normal workers, 20 gold coins a month was already considered quite a good income. Not to mention that although the new flyer's wage didn't have an absolute advantage over the other companies, their benefits far surpassed those of the other companies. According to what they said in private, working at the new flyer, even if they only received a wage of 10 gold coins a month, it was still better than receiving 20 gold coins a month at the other companies. Now that the new flyer was willing to give 300 gold coins a year, it didn't just break the rules of the new flyer, it would also affect the entire wage scale of the magic machine industry. Once the recruitment was announced, countless people flocked to the recruitment sites that the new flyer had set up in the surrounding countries. But after a month of the new year, the people that the new flyer had recruited were less than 2,000 people. It was far lower than the new flyer's initial expectations. This made Sui a bit disappointed and a bit confused. Although it was uncomfortable to work on an unknown island in the endless ocean that was 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers away from his hometown, it wasn't that hard to accept. There were over 20,000 people who came to apply, but only 2,000 people were willing to go in the end. It wasn't even a tenth. It really was too little. Moreover, even if there were 2,000 people, not all of them could go. As for the development of resources on the islands on the Endless Sea, as well as the Sea Area Control Plan, Sui attached great importance to it. Not only did the workers he sent have to be trustworthy, they also had to have special qualities. For example, they had to be able to endure loneliness, they had to have the ability to live normally on the islands with bad conditions, etc. According to Sui's estimation, it would be considered good if a quarter of the 2,000 newly recruited people went to those islands. The real main force had to be selected from the old workers of the new flyer. But even if they were to be selected from the old workers, not many of them were willing to accept such a transfer. Of course, Sui could forcibly transfer them to those islands to work, but for the sake of stability, Sui wasn't willing to do so. It seems that the progress of this plan can only be delayed. Sui looked at the recruitment progress report that Kennard had given him and couldn't help but sigh. Kennard glanced at Sui and hesitated for a moment before saying in a deep voice, "Sir President, actually, if you're willing to raise the salary level in this area, such as from 300 gold coins to 400 gold coins per year, I think there won't be a problem in terms of manpower." No. Sui shook his head very straightforwardly. Setting this kind of salary is not only considering the overall salary level of our Chamber of Commerce, but also the salary level of the entire industry. If we set it too high, it will make it very difficult for the other chambers of commerce. Kennard smiled bitterly and shook his head. He really wanted to say that the other chambers of commerce that were also in the magic machine industry had never considered this point. They had always been using high salaries to poach people from New Flyer, so they didn't have to worry about it at all. But after working by Sui's side for so long, Kennard understood Sui's goal very well. He knew that Sui placed the most importance on the development of the entire industry, so he didn't mind letting New Flyer suffer a bit of loss. Moreover, Sui was right. Even if it was within New Flyer, if they suddenly set the salary of the overseas workers too high, it would definitely affect the internal salary level of the Chamber of Commerce and cause internal chaos. The current salary level of new flyer was set after the mass layoffs, so it was clearly inappropriate to break it in less than a year. He was silent for a bit before saying with a smile, "All right, actually it's also good if I think about it. We can't rush the development of those islands. Not mentioning anything else, at least we don't have that many magic boats right now, right?" Kenner nodded. "Yes, Sir Chairman. We only have 8 large transport magic boats right now. It's not enough to support large amounts of sea transport. Other than that, although we have enough combat magic boats to support 2 fleets, we don't have enough training and personnel. It's too hard to control the large seas to the south of the continent." Then let's do this. We'll do it step by step. First, we'll develop the islands outside the Principality of Constantine, and then we'll push our way to the southern seas. At the same time, we'll focus on recruiting people and building ships. We have to create a strong guard fleet as soon as possible. Kennard looked at Sue E with a thoughtful look. "Viscount Leslie's fleet isn't enough?" "Of course." Sue E didn't have any special expression. He just gave a nod and didn't explain anything. Although Leslie was now under the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guard fleet, leading the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guard fleet, Sue E was very clear that Leslie wouldn't be under him for long. When the time was right, it was very likely that he would leave the new flyer and establish his own fleet. The reason why Sue E gave him command of the new flyer guard fleet was 1, because of their relationship, and 2, because Leslie had this ability as well as inheriting some resources from the Stag family. Now that he was leading the new flyer guard fleet, it could be considered a cooperation between Sue E and Leslie because both sides needed to accumulate experience in controlling fleets. Since the situation had changed, Sue E and Kennard made some changes to the overall plan. Because before this, the new flyer had already explored the seas around the Principality of Constantine and had done some preliminary research on the islands with resources, so this sea area was the starting point of this plan. According to Sue Yi's plan, the Shinfei merchants would set up small bases on these islands and set up some defenses. Then, they would connect these islands, and they would become the first defensive island chain outside the Principality of Constantine. If there was a situation like the Sac Kingdom and Count Wine colluding to attack the new flyer, they would have to break the first island chain's defenses before they could threaten the new flight commerce main base. Following this, Sue Yi's plan was to extend this first island chain to the southern seas of the Kingdom of Ruhr and then to the southern seas of the Kanla Empire. Finally, they would draw a semicircle in the southern seas of the Signs, surrounding the entire southern Signs. To achieve this goal, it was clear that it wasn't enough to develop islands with resources. They also needed to use islands with strategic significance. Like this, the investment for this plan would be shocking. Sue E and Kennard gave a rough estimate. This plan would cost over 100 million gold coins. "All right, Sir Chairman, this plan can't be completed in a year or 2. We can only take it slow," Kennard said with a sigh. Sue E revealed a smile. "Of course, I never thought that we could complete this plan in a short period of time. In short, we just need to work hard in this direction." Kennard also revealed a smile. When he was about to speak, there was a strong knock on the door. Kennard slightly knit his brows before saying in a low voice, "Come in." The door opened, and the human secretary who was Kennard's assistant came in. He had a strange expression on his face as he looked over Kennard before looking at Sue E. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva with difficulty, he said in a voice filled with panic, shock, and doubt, Sir Chairman, I just received news that Her Majesty 70 has officially announced that she is pregnant." Kennard opened his mouth in surprise, but he didn't say anything as he turned to look at Sue E. Sue E was stunned. He turned to look in the direction of Anvil Mars City to the northeast, not saying a thing for a while. Chapter 723. When Her Majesty 70 announced that she was pregnant, it shocked everyone in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries. Although the Signs were more open than most countries on Earth, they weren't that tolerant of being pregnant before marriage. Not to mention that the one who was pregnant before marriage was actually Her Majesty of the Lampari Kingdom. What was even more shocking was that when Her Majesty 70 announced that she was pregnant, She was already 8 months pregnant. Being pregnant for 10 months meant that she was 8 months pregnant. Didn't that mean that she was only 2 months away from giving birth to the child? With the current situation in the Lampari kingdom, even if this was a large scandal, no one dared to have Her Majesty 70 abort the child. First, since Her Majesty was pregnant and had announced this scandal was already set, so there was no meaning in aborting the child. Second, based on the current situation in the Lampari kingdom, it was clear that only Her Majesty 70's child had the right to take the throne, and no one else in the royal family could do it. Before this, there were many people who secretly told Her Majesty that they hoped that she could solve her marriage matter as soon as possible and give birth to a child, confirming the next successor of the Lampari kingdom. Although Her Majesty suddenly announced that she was pregnant and created a scandal, looking at it from another angle, it fulfilled the wishes of many people. Her Majesty was finally going to have a child. The difference between the Queen and the King was that the Queen was a woman after all. She gave birth to her own child, and there was no male at all. The King was worried about whether the child was his or not. As long as she gave birth to it, it was naturally her child. So not long after Her Majesty 70 announced that she was pregnant, all the newspapers in the Lampari kingdom began to report on this matter. They began to announce this with great fanfare, saying that this was a happy matter. The successor of the Lampari kingdom could finally be confirmed. Wasn't this worth being happy about? As for who the father of the child was, that wasn't important at all. All right. Hey, 70's public relations crisis seems to be quite good. Su-yi threw down the Lampari Weekly in his hand and looked at Steele, who was rubbing her stomach with a smile. After being fooled by these newspapers, even I feel that it isn't important who the father of the child in 70's stomach is. Steele looked at Su-yi with a deep look in her eyes as she softly asked, "You really don't care about this?" Su-yi shook his head. It would be a lie to say that I don't care since 70 is my friend. But this is her own choice, and as a friend, I should fully support her at this time and not care about anything else. Other than that. Su-yi came to Steele's side and put his hand on Steele's stomach as he said with a smile, "Compared to caring about who the father of the child in 70's stomach is, I care more about the child in this stomach because its father is no one else but me." Steele looked at Su-yi's hand softly stroking her belly and suddenly gave a sigh. After hesitating a bit, she didn't say the words that were at the tip of her tongue. After pausing, she changed her words. "Speaking of this, Su-yi, do you want this child to be a boy or a girl?" Su-yi gave a shrug. "It doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl. I like them both. But since she already has Freya, I feel that it's better to give her a little brother. One boy and one girl. That way she'll have both a son and a daughter. This isn't a problem, right? Liz and Linda have already given birth to 2 little brothers for her. She doesn't lack any." Su-yi laughed. In the 2 years after Freya was born, because Steele, Liz, and Linda didn't have any movements, he had doubted his fertility. But then Liz and Linda got pregnant at the same time and gave birth to 2 children 2 months ago, which were both boys. Now that Steele was found to be pregnant, it meant that there was no problem with his fertility. The previous 2 years were just an accident. "Oh, and that's right. All right, Steele, you can give birth to a little sister for Freya this time. I think she will like it very much," Su-yi said with a smile. Steele was silent for a bit before shaking her head. "No, I still want to give birth to a boy. Although Freya already has 2 little brothers, I didn't give birth to them, right?" Su-yi looked up at Steele. Although he had expressed his stance to Steele many times and had already confirmed Freya's identity as the first successor, Steele still couldn't let it go. Moreover, after Liz and Linda gave birth to 2 boys, Steele seemed to be even more persistent in this aspect. Su-yi felt that it was very strange sometimes. Normally speaking, the difference between men and women wasn't that serious in signs. Even 70 could inherit the Lampari kingdom's throne without any hindrance. So why did Steele want to give birth to a son for him? But Su-yi never argued with Steele on this aspect. He knew that although Steele had a generous personality, she was still a woman in the end, so it wasn't strange for her to be conflicted in small matters. So Su-yi just said with a smile, "All right, I think that no matter what, Freya will be happy. Of course, I'm the same." Steele gave a slight, gnawed before revealing a tired look. Sui immediately clapped his hands, and Betty came in. "Sir, do you have any orders?" After Betty and Carol were brought back to the Principality of Constantine by Sui, he didn't have them continue being maids, but the two of them took the initiative to accept this responsibility. In many ways, she was quite similar to Liz and Linda. "Steele is tired. Help her rest," Sui said. Betty agreed and wanted to help Steele, but Steele waved her hand and refused. "No need. I'll just rest here for a bit. I have guests coming in a bit, so I have to entertain them." "Guests? People from the Doran song and dance troupe? They're here this quickly?" Sui asked. They were very interested in my plan. They told me a week ago that they would be back today, so I think they should be here by now. It's like this." Sui looked at Steele's stomach, but he didn't force her to rest. He turned to Betty and said, "All right, Betty, help me take care of Steele here. Steele, don't tire yourself out. You just got pregnant, so you need to rest." Steele revealed a faint smile. "Relax, it's not my first time pregnant. I know how to pay attention." Sui looked up at the magic seed on the wall before continuing, "I should go and see how Akali and the others are doing. When I come back tonight, tell me about your discussion with the Doran song and dance troupe. Perhaps I can give you some ideas." "Got it, you can go." Steele nodded. Sui said a few more things to Betty before standing up to leave. When he came out of the manor, he saw a medium-passenger magic car quickly coming out of the manor, stopping right outside the manor. Sui stopped walking out and saw 7 or 8 people get out of the magic car. Other than 3 middle-aged men who looked like smart merchants, the others were all young and beautiful human girls. After they got out, they came over to Sui. The 3 middle-aged men who looked like merchants reached their hands out to Sui from afar with smiles on their faces. "You must be Chairman Sui, right? It really is our honor to meet you." The fat middle-aged man had a flattering smile as he took Sui's hands and shook them. "Let me introduce myself. I am the Doran Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Varen Randolph, and these two are my assistants." The other 2 middle-aged men also reached their hands out to Sui. They also had warm smiles on their faces as they introduced themselves. Sui nodded to the 2 of them with a smile, before his eyes fell onto the beautiful human girls behind them. Chairman Randolph pointed at them and said with a smile, "They're the most beautiful girls in our Doran song and dance troupe. Whether it's dancing, singing, or playing, they're all the best. Chairman Sui, what do you think of them?" Those human girls had their eyes on Sui the entire time. When they saw him look over, they all showed their most perfect poses as they stared at Sui without blinking. Their eyes were filled with passion, not hiding their interest in Sui at all. Sui didn't have any special reaction. He just nodded lightly. "They are all very good. However, President Randolph, the requirements for the actors in the illusion film are not based on their appearance or talent, but on their acting skills. Steele will tell you in detail later, so I won't say much." Yes, we will definitely listen to Madame Steele's arrangements. We will do whatever she says. Chairman Sui, you can rest assured that since you are willing to give this opportunity to our Doran Chamber of Commerce, we will definitely do our best." Sui smiled and shook his head. "No, this opportunity is not given by me, but by Steele. Regarding this matter, it is all handled by Steele and her New Moon Chamber of Commerce. I will not interfere." Chairman Randolph laughed. "Chairman Sui, you must be joking. Madame Steele is your father. Her matters are your matters." Sui shook his head and was too lazy to explain. He pointed to the manor. "All right, Steele is waiting for you. Go in. I still have other things to take care of, so I can't accompany you." President Randolph hurriedly waved his hand and stepped aside to make way. "Chairman Sui, you can do your own things. You don't need to pay attention to us." Sui nodded and left. After walking for a while, he turned around and saw that Randolph and the others had already entered the manor. He couldn't help but frown. The Doran song and dance troupe could be said to be the most famous troupe in the Lampari Kingdom, so it was normal for Steele to find them first when looking for a partner. But after a short contact, Sui didn't have any good impression of them. Even the beautiful human girls gave him a vulgar feeling. They didn't leave a good first impression. But after thinking about it, Sui felt that he was being too picky. In terms of vulgarity, The entertainment industry on Earth was much more vulgar than these people, but that didn't stop them from creating programs that could entertain people. It didn't matter if they were vulgar or not, in Su Yi's opinion. As long as they could meet Steele's requirements, it was fine. In the end, it didn't have much to do with him. Thinking of this, Su Yi smiled and shook his head. He turned around and walked toward a tall steeple in the distance. Chapter 724. When the tower was still far away, he already felt that it was very tall. When he got closer, he found that this tower was made of steel from top to bottom and was more than 20 meters above the ground. He had to raise his head to see the top of the tower. The base of this iron tower alone took up more than 100 square meters. Combined with this height, it was very eye-catching standing on this piece of land. Su Yi walked near the base of the iron tower and saw a group of people wearing the uniform of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce busy below. When he was about to greet them, he suddenly heard a childish shout from the crowd. "No, I want to go up. I want to go up." Su Yi was startled. He immediately recognized that this was Freya's voice. Sure enough, Akali's helpless voice came from the crowd. "Freya, it's too high up. It's very dangerous. If you go up, I'm afraid of scaring you." "I'm not scared. With Auntie Akali here, there won't be any danger. But it's too high. There's also a lot of wind up there. You'll be cold." "I won't. Auntie Akali is a magician. You'll protect me, right?" Akali was even more helpless. "But I have a job." Freya was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted, "Humph. Dad has a job. Mom has a job. Auntie Akali also has a job. You all don't play with me. You all don't want me anymore." At the beginning, Freya's voice was still full of anger. Later on, it turned into a sobbing tone. Su Yi, who originally wanted to eavesdrop on how Freya and Akali conversed, could no longer stay at the side. He coughed heavily and showed himself. "Freya, what are you doing here?" Hearing Su Yi's voice, everyone's eyes focused on him. Freya's sobbing voice also stopped. She came out from the gap made by the crowd. When she saw Su Yi, her wrinkled face immediately became a brilliant smile, and she flew over. "Daddy!" Su Yi picked her up and looked at the tears in her eyes. A trace of guilt flashed through his heart. He said softly, "Freya, why did you come here? Why don't you stay at home and play with your brothers?" "My little brothers don't know how to talk. I don't want to play with them." Freya pouted. "It's not fun at home, so I asked Aunt Carol to bring me out." Su Yi turned around and saw Carol in the crowd. He nodded and carried Freya to Akali's side. Akali shrugged helplessly at Su Yi. "Chairman, Freya insists on going to the signal tower to take a look." "I don't dare to agree." Su Yi smiled and asked Freya, "Freya, why do you want to go up?" "Because it's very high," Freya answered confidently. "I like places that are high." "Daddy, Aunt Akali won't bring me up. Can you bring me up?" Looking at Freya's pleading eyes, Su Yi couldn't refuse and could only nod. Freya cheered and then turned around to wave her little fist at Akali. Her little face was full of pride. Akali could only smile bitterly. "Okay, Freya, play with Aunt Carol for a while. I have some things to discuss with Aunt Akali. I'll bring you up after that." Freya nodded and slid down Su Yi's body to the ground. She quickly ran to Carol's side and stood there obediently, looking at Su expectantly. Seeing her like this, Akali couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Sir President, every time I see Freya, I think that it's time for me to have a child. If I can have a child as cute as Freya, I'll be so happy every day." Su Yi laughed. "That's because you haven't seen how Freya gives you a headache." "Oh no, didn't you just experience it once?" "What? You still think she's cute?" "Of course," Akali said with a smile. "For a child as cute as Freya, I won't be annoyed no matter how much she whines. Besides, Freya is already very obedient. I've never seen her cry unreasonably. That's because Steele and I taught her well." Su Yi chuckled and praised himself without holding back. "But Akali, if you want to have a child, you have to get married first." "Who said that?" Akali rolled her eyes at Su Yi. "Didn't you see that Her Majesty has a child before getting married? I want to learn from her." Su Yi couldn't help rolling his eyes. 70's pregnancy before getting married didn't have any other effects, but it gave the girls of the surrounding countries a lesson. That's right. Even Her Majesty could do it. So of course they could too. Sui looked at the proud Akali, and after thinking about it, he gave up saying, "You have to find a man if you want to have a child." He looked up at the iron tower in the sky and asked, "All right, I won't joke around anymore. Tell me, how is the signal tower?" Hearing Sui ask about work, Akali stopped joking around, but she looked even more excited. "Very good." Akali gave Sui a thumbs up. "Sir Chairman, your idea is simply too good. Why didn't I think of using this signal tower as a relay station for the magic array's resonance and extending the range of the signal? Now that this signal tower has been built, we can expand the range of the magic array's resonance and solve the problem of the small resonance range." Sui revealed a faint smile, thinking that this was actually the same principle as the radio signal towers on Earth. When he gave the suggestion to Akali, Sui was just trying out, but he never thought that Akali would lead her team to complete the theoretical research in less than 4 months. She also worked with the research center to solve the practical application problem in just 3 months, building this signal tower. Now, there was a magic array on this signal tower that was used to transmit and resonate mana wave signals. Through this magic array, the mana waves generated by another magic array within 5,000 meters could be relayed and transmitted through this transmission signal tower. As a result, the range of the mana waves was directly expanded from the previous maximum of 5,000 meters to 10,000 meters, which was a full doubling of the original range. Moreover, the most important significance of this research center was that this signal tower could be transmitted continuously, just like the radio signal towers on Earth. In other words, as long as another magic array was set up 5,000 meters away, the magic array could continue to transmit the magic array. In theory, the magic array's resonance could transmit the magic array to an infinite distance. Of course, it's impossible to transmit it infinitely. Akali waved her hand. "The magic array will be affected by various factors during the transmission process and will suffer a certain amount of loss. If the distance is too long, it will gradually weaken until it completely disappears. It's impossible to maintain the original state." "Then, have you made any progress in your research on reducing the loss of magic array?" Sui asked. Akali smiled bitterly and shook her head. "There hasn't been much progress in this area. Don't be discouraged." Sui patted Akali's shoulder. "Look, you were able to increase the magic array's maximum transmission range from a few hundred meters to more than 5,000 meters through your research. This proves that there's a way to achieve this. You can put a lot of effort into this research. The Chamber of Commerce will fully support you." "The Chamber of Commerce's support? Aren't you the one supporting us, Mr. President?" Akali asked. "Nonsense. Of course I'll fully support you." Sui glared at Akali and extended his hand to Akali. "Come, give it to me. I'll try it out." Akali giggled and took out a magic communicator and handed it to Sui. Sui looked around and activated the magic array in his body. His figure instantly broke through the void. When he reappeared, he was already about 4,000 meters to the west of the tower. After confirming the location, Sui pressed on the magic communicator, cleared his throat, and spoke into the magic communicator. Hello, this is Sui. Please answer if you can hear me." A moment later, there was a burst of noise from the magic communicator. Then a loud and obviously excited voice sounded. "It's Mr. President. Mr. President, this is Samro. Can you hear me? This is the street outside the Yodel restaurant. We're talking to you here." Sui looked up to the east. The Yodel restaurant was the largest restaurant in the residential area of the new Flight Commerce main base. It was 8 kilometers away in a straight line. If it was the previous magic communicator, this distance would be far beyond the range of the communication. "Okay, I hear you. You can continue with your experiments." Sui replied and turned off the magic communicator. His figure flashed and broke through the void again. This time, he returned to the bottom of the signal tower. "How is it? Mr. President, did you receive the signal? Is it clear enough?" Akali asked as soon as she saw Sui appear. "Yes, I can hear it, but it's not very clear," Sui replied. "But it's already very good." "Akali, Continue to cooperate with the R&D Center. As long as your research can keep up, I plan to set up signal towers everywhere in the Principality of Constantine. We'll strive to be able to communicate with each other everywhere in the Principality. Yes, that's also my goal. Akali nodded vigorously. She then said worriedly, "But Mr. President, just this signal tower alone used up more than 10 tons of high-quality steel. In addition to the other expenses, we spent a total of tens of thousands of gold coins. If we want to achieve this goal in the Principality, I estimate that we'll need to set up at least 400 signal towers. That'll cost about 5 million gold coins. Money isn't a problem." He waved his hand, looking rather heroic. "This is the #1 goal that our Chamber of Commerce has to achieve in the next 2 years. You don't have to worry about funding. In short, I'll fully support you." "Is that so?" Akali was still a little doubtful. Although the Chamber of Commerce had made a lot of money this year, there were still many areas to spend money on. Just this project alone would cost 4 million gold coins. What about the other areas? But after thinking about it, Akali felt relieved. It was up to the president to decide on the direction of investment. It had nothing to do with her. Moreover, how could the president make a mistake? Thinking of this, Akali narrowed her eyes and smiled. Freya saw that Su-Yi and Akali had stopped talking. She suddenly opened Carol's eyes and ran to Su-Yi's side. "Father, are you done talking to Aunt Akali? Can you bring me up to play?" Su-Yi smiled and bent down to pick her up. "Okay, Father will bring you up to play now." Su-Yi raised his hand, and a wind shield protected Freya. Then he tapped his feet and slowly flew up with Freya. Chapter 725. The light, golden magic sedan charged out of the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Principality of Constantine, going down the long slope of the strewn road from the cliff. Seeing the tall trees on both sides of the road, leaving only the trees in the open view, Ambassador Hakkinen couldn't help giving a sigh. This wasn't his first time coming to the Principality of Constantine from the Kingdom of Ruhr, but every time he went down this road, he always felt that it was a bit of a pity. If the new flyer had made this road a bit longer when they were laying down the strewn road, he could have enjoyed the pleasure of driving through the clouds a bit more. But thinking of how he was about to reach the new flyer and see Chairman Su again, as well as receiving a large amount of benefits from him, Ambassador Hakkinen threw this bit of regret to the back of his head. He increased the speed of the magic sedan by a bit. Very soon, the magic sedan entered the slight dream forest. The road, that was a bit dark because of the trees, had rows of bright magic lamps hanging on both sides. It formed a conspicuous belt of light in the slight dream forest, guiding the magic sedan forward. Ambassador Hakkinen looked at the magic lamps on both sides of the road and was a bit confused. When he came here before, he didn't think of this problem. But seeing these magic lamps again, he couldn't help having a question. There were probably more than 2,000 magic lamps on this stretch of road. Even the cheapest magic lamp would cost more than 3,000 gold coins to make. This didn't include the daily maintenance of these magic lamps. Since it was like this, why didn't the new flyer cut down the trees on both sides of the road when they were laying down the strewn road? As long as there was a gap and sunlight came in, this road didn't need the magic lamps at all. Chairman Su didn't do this. Could it be that he wanted this road to have a more dreamy feeling? When I see Chairman Su later, I have to ask him. Ambassador Hakkinen secretly made his decision. "Viscount Hakkinen, how much longer will it take?" There was a deep male voice that came from the magic sedan. Hearing this voice, Ambassador Hakkinen quickly stopped his wild thoughts. He looked at the serious middle-aged man sitting in the back of the magic sedan through the rearview mirror, and a warm smile appeared on his chubby face. "We'll be at New Moon Town in another half an hour. I've already arranged to meet the new Flyer's CEO, Kennard, there." New Moon Town? Why isn't there any information about this town on the map? Oh, this New Moon Town is a new town that New Flyer built last year, so it isn't on the map. Oh? What is New Flyer building this town for? Is this town under the jurisdiction of the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce or the Stantine Duchy? The middle-aged man had a serious look on his face in the rearview mirror. Su-Yi nodded. According to what the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce's chairman Su-Yi said, This town was built to attract people and to try building a new modern town. Town? What does that mean? Ambassador Hakkinen shook his head. Although Chairman Su has explained it to me before, I don't understand. Is that so? After the middle-aged man asked this, he fell silent. Ambassador Hakkinen also closed his mouth and focused on driving. He didn't directly drive out of the slight dream forest. Rather, he drove to the Shinfei's magic refill station that he had visited with Kennard when he first came to the Principality of Constantine. After explaining the use of this magic refill station to the middle-aged man and the other two people, Ambassador Hakkinen brought them to the toilet that he thought was very advanced for them to experience. Seeing the three of them being surprised by the automatic washing function of the toilet and the drying function of the magic dryer, Ambassador Hakkinen felt a strange satisfaction in his heart. These three fellows stayed in the Kamla Empire all day, thinking that the Kamla Empire was #1 in the world. Now that they were here to see the world, they knew how shallow their knowledge was before. After resting for a bit, when they were about to set off again, there was a pure black magic sedan that came from the Principality of Constantine that came to the magic refill station. When Ambassador Hakkinen felt that this magic sedan was a bit familiar, he saw Kennard come out of the car. Kennard came over to Ambassador Hakkinen and looked over the other three people who came with Ambassador Hakkinen. His eyes paused on the middle-aged man before he said to Ambassador Hakkinen with a smile, "Ambassador Hakkinen, it really has been hard on you to come all the way here. I represent the new flyer to give you a warm welcome." Ambassador Hakkinen nodded before asking in a doubtful voice, "Executive Officer Kennard, didn't you agree to meet in New Moon Town? Why'd you come here first? This kind of warmth really makes me feel flattered." Kennard laughed before shaking his head. "You're mistaken. I was planning on waiting for you in New Moon Town, but now the plan has changed. Sir Chairman has decided to personally come to New Moon Town, so he sent me to greet you ahead of time and bring you to meet Sir Chairman." "Oh, this means that Chairman Su is in New Moon Town right now?" "Yes." Ambassador Hakkinen was shocked. He turned around and looked like he couldn't wait as he said to the middle-aged man, "Sir Russell, Chairman Su isn't far away. Let's quickly go see him." The middle-aged man called Sir Russell revealed a faint smile. "Viscount Hakkinen, you seem to be looking forward to meeting Chairman Su." "This." Ambassador Hakkinen knew that he was too anxious, so he said with an awkward smile, "Chairman Su is a very outstanding person. Every time I meet him, I gain many inspirations and even gain many new understandings of this world, so I'm always looking forward to meeting him." "Oh." Sir Russell revealed a smile as a look of disdain flashed in his eyes. This Hakkinen didn't have any abilities. He only knew how to rely on his big sister being the Emperor's favorite concubine to be greedy. Now that he was praising Chairman Su like this, it was probably because he had been fed too much by the new flyer. Thinking of this, Sir Russell looked at Kennard with a cold look in his eyes. Kennard acted like he didn't notice Sir Russell's gaze at all. He took out a rectangular metal box from his chest and gave it to Ambassador Hakkinen. "Ambassador Hakkinen, Sir Chairman wants to talk to you first and also greet these sirs." Ambassador Hakkinen nodded. He took the metal box in front of the surprised gazes of Russell's group of three. When he was about to press the button on the box, he was suddenly stunned. "Kennard, this place is this far from New Moon Town. There shouldn't be a way to talk, right?" Kennard made an inviting gesture with a smile. Ambassador Hakkinen doubtfully pressed the button. After hesitating a bit, he shouted into the metal box, "Hello? Is this Chairman Su? I am Hakkinen. Can you hear me?" After a while, there was a bright young man's laughter that came from the metal box. "Ha, ha, Ambassador Hakkinen, hello, I am Su. Welcome to the Principality of Constantine again. I represent the entire new flyer in welcoming you and Sir Russell's group of three." Ambassador Hakkinen's expression was a bit surprised. He couldn't help looking in the direction of New Moon Town to the west. This place was at least 30 kilometers away from New Moon Town, and he had personally told him that the magic communicator developed by New Flyer had a maximum range of 4,000 meters. Then why was he able to talk to through the magic communicator? Could it be that was lying to him before? Or could it be that was nearby and Kennard was lying to him? Compared to Ambassador Hackenen's surprise, Russell's group of 3 was completely shocked. When they saw Kenner take out this metal box that didn't seem special and say that Sue, you wanted to talk to Hackenen, they were only filled with doubt. But when they heard that there was a voice coming from the metal box and that it had a complete conversation with Hackenen, the 3 of them couldn't help revealing looks of disbelief. What was this metal box? It was actually this mysterious. Sir Russell thought about it before coming forward to reach his hand out to Ambassador Hackenen. Ambassador Hackenen understood and respectfully placed the magic communicator in his hand. Then he gestured for him to speak into the magic communicator. Sir Russell looked at the magic communicator and paused before saying with a bit of hesitation, "Hey, hello. May I ask if you're the new flyers, Sue E., Chairman Sue?" "I'm the Vice Chief of Staff of the Kamla Empire's Navy Department, Remito Russell. This is our first time meeting. This is our first time talking to you. I'm very happy." The magic communicator's voice sounded again. "Hello, Sir Russell. I am Sue E. Right now, as the chairman, I represent the new flyer to give you a warm welcome. I have already sent the company's CEO, Kennard, to ask you to come to New Moon Town with him. I have already prepared a sumptuous lunch. I'm looking forward to having lunch with you." Russell nodded. "All right, I'll be right there. All right, I'm looking forward to your and Ambassador Hackenen's arrival." As soon as Sue Yi's voice fell, the magic communicator flashed with a red light before falling silent. Russell looked at the magic communicator in his hand before looking at Kennard. After hesitating a bit, he finally gave the magic communicator back. Kennard didn't reach out to take it. Rather, he said with a smile, "Sir Russell, this magic communicator is my first small gift for you. With this magic communicator, you could talk to Sir Chairman anywhere around here. I think that in the next few days, it will be much more convenient for you. As for how to use it, you can ask Ambassador Hackenen." "Is that so?" Russell hesitated a bit, but he didn't decline. He directly threw the magic communicator to a follower on his right. Ambassador Hackenen looked at the 2 followers carefully holding the magic communicator with curious looks, and he couldn't help secretly laughing in his heart. "Hey, these 2 country bumpkins from the Kamla Empire." Chapter 726. The superiority in Ambassador Hackenen's heart reached its peak when he followed Kennard to New Moon Town. When they saw the several dozen-meter-tall buildings in New Moon Town in the distance, Russell's 2 followers were very surprised. After entering New Moon Town, they were still very surprised when they saw the neatly arranged houses and the clean, wide, and flat roads. After walking a bit, they saw the red, yellow, and green traffic lights at the intersection, and the 2 were surprised again. Then they saw all kinds of magic cars on the road, and they were very surprised. In short, when they approached New Moon Town, the 2 of them revealed looks of surprise no matter what they saw. This made Ambassador Hackenen look down on them in his heart. They were simply 2 country bumpkins who had never seen the world, so his heart was filled with a sense of superiority. But he had forgotten that he also came from the Kamla Empire. Moreover, when he came here for the first time, his appearance wasn't that much better than these 2 followers. Russell had been very calm the entire time. Although when he looked around, his eyes revealed a look of surprise. Overall, he was still quite calm. But when they arrived at the tallest and most conspicuous building in the center of New Moon Town with Kennard's lead, there was a small iron monster that slowly came down and stopped in front of them. Even Russell couldn't help revealing a look of shock. What is this thing?" Russell pointed at the strange thing in front of him that was made of some unknown metal that was covered in a silver glow as he asked this to Kennard. "Sir Russell, this is our company's newly developed small magic airship. It was specially sent by Sir Chairman to bring you up for a meal, please." Kennard came to the side of the small magic airship and reached out his hand in an inviting gesture. Russell hesitated a bit before giving a nod and walking over. Ambassador Hackenen and his 2 followers were surprised before quickly following him. This small magic airship was only 3 times the size of their magic sedan from the outside, but the space inside was very big. It was very spacious even after the 5 of them went in. Before Russell's group could look around, they felt a tremor under their feet. They felt that they were slowly being lifted into the air by this small magic airship. Astonishment flashed across Russell's face once again. Although when he heard the name small magic airship, he had already guessed the use of this thing. When he actually sat in it and flew into the air, he couldn't help being shocked. Before this, only the elves and the legendary halflings had the ability to carry people into the sky. After the disappearance of the halflings and the decline of the elves, this kind of tool became something that only existed in legends. He never thought that new Flyer would be able to make this kind of magic machine. Moreover, based on his experience, this small magic airship was very stable, so it could be seen that new Flyer's technology was very mature. Thinking of the purpose of his trip, Russell began to plan. Maybe we should talk more when we see Sui later? The small magic airship didn't give Russell much time to think. In just half a minute, Russell's group felt a tremble under their feet as the small magic airship stopped in the air. Then it drifted towards a tall building before sinking down a bit and stopping. The cabin door slowly opened, and Kennard made an inviting gesture again. Russell calmed himself and walked out first. "Sir Russell, welcome, welcome." There was a clear laugh that came from in front of him. Russell could instantly tell that this was the voice he had heard through the magic communicator. Looking up, he saw a young man who looked a little too young. No matter how he looked at it, he was at most 30 years old. The young man greeted him with a warm smile. Russell reached out his hand to shake his hand before saying with a nod, "Chairman Sue, it's my honor to meet you for the first time." Sue laughed. "Sir Russell's praise is too much. Being able to meet the Lord General of the Canla Empire and having the chance to have lunch with you, this is my honor." Ambassador Hakkinen and his 2 followers came down with Kennard. Ambassador Hakkinen was planning on giving Sue a warm hug, but he gave up after looking at Russell. After Sue greeted them, he invited them to a table and prepared to have lunch together. The place Sue chose was very special. It was an open-air restaurant built on the top floor of the Omrit Hotel in New Moon Town. Through the glass, one could clearly see that they were high up in the sky. Even the people on the ground below had turned into black dots that couldn't be seen at all. Whether it was Ambassador Hakkinen, his 2 followers, or even Russell, this was their first time eating at such a high place. They couldn't help looking outside in surprise. "Chairman Sue, such a tall building. How did your new Flyer build it?" Russell couldn't help asking. "No, this building wasn't built by our company." He shook his head with a smile. Russell was stunned. "It wasn't built by your new Flyer? Then which company has this kind of special power?" Hearing Russell use power to describe it, Sue couldn't help smiling. "This building is called the Omrit Hotel, so of course it was built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, not only this hotel, all the high-rise buildings in New Moon Town that you see are all built by the Omrit Chamber of Commerce. It can even be said that this entire New Moon Town was built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Our new Flyer is only responsible for paying for it." Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce? Russell narrowed his eyes. After pausing for a bit, he said in a thoughtful voice, "If I remember correctly, the one who came to our Canla Empire last year to lay down roads was this Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce." "That's right, it's them." Sue nodded. "It's like this." Russell nodded and fell silent. Seeing that the atmosphere at the table was a bit heavy, Ambassador Hakkinen gave a soft cough and said to Russell, "Sir Russell, this time you came with me from the Kingdom of Ruhr, and we walked on the road. Don't you feel that? This road is much better than any dirt road in our empire?" Russell looked at him and softly said, "Of course I can feel it." After thinking for a bit, he turned to Sue and said, "Chairman Sue, looking at it like this Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce should be very strong. So why haven't I heard of it before?" Sue revealed a faint smile. Because a few years ago, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was just a small company in the Lampari Kingdom's Banda City, so naturally you wouldn't have heard of it. Just like your new Flyer? Russell looked at Sue and asked this. Sue nodded with a faint smile. Yes. Russell's right hand on the table unconsciously patted twice before he suddenly said to Sue with a serious look, "Chairman Sue, I think you should understand why I came to see you." Sue put down the knife and fork in his hand. He crossed his hands and looked at Russell, but his expression was still relaxed as he said with a slight nod, "If my guesses aren't wrong, Sir Russell should be here because of the misunderstanding between our company's guard fleet and your country's third fleet. It can be said like this, but it isn't completely correct." Russell looked at Sue E before his face sunk. "Chairman Sue, your new flyer guard fleet actually ignored the warning of our Empire's Navy and even tried to attack while escaping. This is clearly a provocation to our Empire's Navy and also a provocation to our Canla Empire. Do you have any explanation for this matter?" Sue E gave a shrug and said with a relaxed look, "Sir Russell, I just said that this was a misunderstanding. Our company didn't have any thoughts of provoking the Empire's Navy and didn't have any intentions of offending the Canla Empire." "Then why did you run away? You even attacked the Empire's Navy while escaping?" Russell asked with a sunken look. Sue E shook his head. "That's why I said it was a misunderstanding. We chose to escape so that we wouldn't clash with the Empire's Navy. As for attacking, we just hoped that the Empire's Navy wouldn't chase us. We didn't really plan on attacking. After all, we didn't attack any of the Empire's Navy ships, right?" Russell knit his brows. Thinking of the situation described in the Third Fleet's report, he couldn't help giving a cold snort. Sue E made it sound nice, but the truth was that the Empire's Third Fleet couldn't catch up to the new flyer's escort fleet. Even if they could catch up, they wouldn't dare to. The report described the new flyer's escort fleet's attack power as extremely shocking. According to the deputy commander of the Third Fleet, Candor, if they had rashly chased after them, the entire fleet might have been wiped out. This conclusion caused an uproar within the Canla Empire's military. No one believed Candor's words. Everyone thought that Candor was trying to cover up his negligence and deliberately exaggerating the new flyer's escort fleet's ability. This was because no one believed that the Third Fleet of the Imperial Navy would be completely annihilated by a few small boats that were used as guards by a mere merchant guild. Candor was stripped of all his military positions because of this matter and the ridiculous report he submitted at that time. This matter was also sealed in the military's archives because it would affect the Empire's Navy's image if it was made public. If it wasn't for the fact that Russell had a private meeting with Candor during New Year's and heard him mention this matter would have been suppressed like this. After this, Russell had heard that Ambassador Hakkinen had been in contact with the unknown Frestec Chamber of Commerce on the west side of the continent, so he had him bring him here to investigate the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Candor was already drunk when he told Russell about this matter, so it was impossible for him to lie. He firmly believed that the new Flyers Guard fleet was very strong and couldn't resist at all. So even if Russell didn't believe it, he still wanted to investigate. Russell was filled with doubts at first, but after coming to the Principality of Constantine and seeing these strange scenes, the doubts in his heart gradually decreased. When he boarded the small magic airship, the doubts in his heart were almost confirmed. This new flyer, it was very likely that there was something special about it that people couldn't imagine. Candor's claim that it was like a fleet from another world was probably true. Chapter 7:27. Sue, he was a bit disappointed. When he learned from Ambassador Hakkinen that the Canla Empire's army headquarters would send someone to the Principality of Constantine to inspect the new flyer, Sue E was very happy. He thought that his hard work had finally paid off and the Canla Empire was finally paying attention to the new flyer. Moreover, Sir Russell, who came with Ambassador Hakkinen, was the Vice Chief of Staff of the Canla Empire's Navy. Whether it was his status, position, or position, it all fit Sue Yi's expectations. It made Sue E think that sending this person represented the attitude of the Canla Empire. It wasn't too high profile, but it wasn't underestimated either. Sue E thought that with his contact with Russell this time, the Canla Empire would pay more attention to the new flyer. At the same time, they would pay more attention to it and open a window for cooperation between the new flyer and the Canla Empire, allowing the new flyer to smoothly enter the Canla Empire's large market. However, after being in close contact with Russell, Sue E found that his thoughts were too simple. Although Sir Russell was a high-level member of the Canla Empire's Navy, this time, he didn't carry any official will from the Canla Empire. He didn't even represent the Canla Empire's Navy and Army. He came with his own identity. According to what Russell said, the reason why he came to the Principality of Constantine to inspect the new flyer was purely to see the new flyer's guard fleet and didn't have any other goals. He was naturally disappointed by this result, but thinking about it, he felt that this was the most normal thing. The Canla Empire was one of the two largest empires in the signs. Even small countries like the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr were not worth mentioning in their eyes, let alone a small merchant guild in the Principality of Constantine. The reason why the new flyer could arouse Russell's personal curiosity and interest was entirely because the new flyer's escort fleet had displayed some peculiarities in the conflict with the Canla Empire's Third Fleet. If it wasn't for the fact that he had his suspicions about this matter, even Russell wouldn't have thought of investigating this matter. In that case, this matter might have been suppressed within the Canla Empire's military headquarters and treated as if nothing had happened. He was very clear that even if the new flyer had great influence in the nearby countries, it would definitely not be placed in the eyes of the Canla Empire. Therefore, it would not be swayed by Russell's attitude. However, through this incident, a problem was also reflected. The Canla Empire's military headquarters didn't attach any importance to this matter. It could be seen that they had already lost their vigilance. Otherwise, with the new flyer's escort fleet displaying these peculiarities under Su Yi's instructions, the Canla Empire's military headquarters would have attached importance to this matter no matter what. The current facts were that if it wasn't for Russell being curious about this matter, the new flyer's escort fleet would have been like winking at a blind person. After thinking through these problems, the disappointment in Su Yi's heart faded a bit. He continued with his plan from before and warmly welcomed Russell's group. Russell was interested in the new flyer's escort fleet, so Su Yi openly showed it to him. When Russell and his two assistants saw the giant magic ship that was completely made of steel, the shock on their faces definitely wasn't fake. However, no matter how shocked they were by the things in front of them, after the 3-day inspection ended, when they finally left the Principality of Constantine, Russell remained silent and didn't give any definite response. But Su Yi was certain that after these days of inspection, he would have some thoughts in his heart. Compared to Russell and his two assistants who came and left in a hurry, leaving nothing behind and taking nothing away, Ambassador Hakkinen came to the new flyer again and obtained the same satisfying harvest as before. According to the private agreement that Su Yi had with him, the new flyer sold him various household magic machines worth 300,000 gold coins at a price that was 10% lower than the market price. According to Su Yi's understanding, these household magic machines were currently sold in the Canla Empire's capital, Wimbledon City. They were sold at double the price here, and the supply couldn't meet the demand. Even if Ambassador Hakkinen was responsible for the transportation from the Principality of Constantine to Wimbledon City, as long as he sold these household magic machines in Wimbledon City, he would be able to earn a profit of at least 150,000 gold coins. Since he met Su Yi last year, in less than a year, Ambassador Hakkinen had earned over 400,000 gold coins from his cooperation with the new flyer. Before this, no matter how greedy he was in the Canla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr, he could only earn several tens of thousands of gold coins a year. Cooperating with the new flyer gave him 10 times the profit from before. It was no wonder he happily threw away the conflict he had with Su Yi when they first met. He treated Su Yi as his best partner and even listened to Su Yi's words. He believed that Su Yi's suggestions would bring him a large profit. However, this time, the matter that Su Yi had talked to him in private before he left made his eyes pop out in shock. "You want me to invest in roads in the Empire?" Ambassador Hakkinen looked at Su Yi with a look of disbelief. "I say, Chairman Su, are you joking?" "No, I'm not joking at all." Su Yi shook his head. "You're not joking?" No. "I still think you're joking. You should be clear on how much it costs to build a road. I don't have that much money. Then again, there are no benefits to me at all." Ambassador Hakkinen forcefully shook his head. Su Yi waved his hand with a smile. "You're mistaken. I'm not asking you to pay for this road. The money needed for this road will all come from our new flyer." Ambassador Hakkinen looked at Su Yi with a confused look. "Chairman Su, why do you want to do this?" Your new flyer is paying to build a road in our Empire. What benefits do you have? Of course there are benefits, but I can't see it right now. He said with a smile. But for Ambassador Hakkinen, there are clear benefits. Ambassador Hakkinen was even more confused. What benefits do I have? Please look at the map. He turned to the map hanging on the wall and reached out to draw a line from the Principality of Constantine to the Empire. Ambassador Hakkinen, let me ask you a question. To transport the household magic machines you ordered from here to Wimbledon City, how much would it cost to transport them? That is hard to say. Ambassador Hakkinen shook his head. But if we calculate it based on the transport capacity of a large transport magic car, it would cost around 30 gold coins. 30 gold coins? Then have you calculated where these 30 gold coins are mainly spent? He asked. Ambassador Hakkinen knit his brows. After thinking for a bit, he looked at the map he was pointing at and gave a bitter laugh. Chairman I understand what you mean. Of the 30 gold coins, at least half of it is spent on the road between our Empire and Wimbledon City. He nodded, thinking that Ambassador Hakkinen wasn't completely stupid. From here to the border between the Norton Duchy and the Empire, the total distance is close to 1,500 kilometers, but from the border to Wimbledon City, the total distance is less than 500 kilometers. There is such a difference in mileage, but the transport cost is the same. Ambassador Hakkinen, you should know why there is such a difference, right? Ambassador Hakkinen nodded with a bitter smile. Of course I know. There is no other reason. It's just because the roads in our Empire are too bad. Those *T muddy roads were usually passable, but when it rained, they simply couldn't be walked. 500 kilometers only takes half a day to travel on the roads here, but in the Empire, it would take at least 2 days. Seeing Ambassador Hakkinen's resentful appearance, revealed a faint smile, thinking that it's good that you understand. So the road I'm planning is to connect to Wimbledon City from this border. If this road is built, when we transport goods from here to Wimbledon City, it will save a large amount of time and transportation costs. Ambassador Hakkinen, do you think this isn't beneficial to you? Ambassador Hakkinen looked at the road pointed out in the Empire several times before slowly nodding. If there is this road, it would be much more convenient. But Chairman if this road is built, it will take close to 500 kilometers. Your new flyer will have to invest at least 1 million gold coins, right? Money isn't a problem. He shook his head with a faint smile. The main problem is how to build this road. Ambassador Hakkinen, there are many restrictions on our company in the Empire, so we can't build this road. So whether this road can be built successfully, we have to rely on you. If you're willing, you just need to obtain permission to build this road. As for the other aspects, whether it is money, manpower, or preparations, you don't need to care about them. What do you think? Ambassador Hakkinen was a bit hesitant, but if I suddenly say that I want to build this road, there will be many people who will doubt me. Revealed a smile and raised a finger to Ambassador Hakkinen. If this matter is successful, I will personally sponsor you with 100,000 gold coins as thanks for your selfless help. 100,000 gold coins? Ambassador Hakkinen swallowed a mouthful of saliva before giving a strong nod. All right, deal. Chapter 728. It was another year of spring, and the flowers bloomed. In April of each year, Banta City's bicycle race would be held, so Banta City would become very lively. Because of the success of the Sheenfei bicycle race last year, when people were paying attention to the Banta City bicycle race, there were more and more people who were paying attention to the Sheenfei bicycle race that followed. Last year, because it was the first year of the competition and only a few companies participated in the competition, it didn't attract much attention. But at the end of last year, the final race of the Sheenfei bicycle race came to an end. After the final champion was decided, and it was announced that the champion would receive a high prize of 84,000 gold coins, this race immediately attracted a lot of attention. Everyone thought that the highest prize of 100,000 gold coins was just a slogan, so not many people really believed it. But in front of countless people, the Frestag Chamber of Commerce personally gave the Golden Chimera Chamber of Commerce's gold notes to the champion racer for the 84,000 gold coins, creating a stir in this race. So when the second Xinfei bicycle race began, it attracted the attention of countless people. It even attracted more attention than the Banta City bicycle race. Of course, the Banta City bicycle race wasn't ignored because the top 3 winners of the Banta City bicycle race last year were recruited by the 3 companies that participated in the Xinfei bicycle race, becoming professional riders. Just last year, they received a shocking 2,000 gold coins as a base salary. If someone won the Banta City bicycle race this year, they would receive the attention of those companies and be recruited into the professional cycling team. So whether it was for the slogan participation first, or for the dream of becoming a professional rider, the number of people participating in this year's Banta City bicycle race reached a new high, reaching a shocking 96,000 people. It had to be known, because of the various factories, there were many people who came from far away to work, but the total population of Banta City was only over 300,000. 96,000 people. In other places in the Lampari Kingdom, this was a huge population that only the top few cities could reach. Because the number of people far exceeded their estimates, the Banta City bicycle race that usually ended in a single day was split into 2 days. The competitors were split into 2 groups, and the final results were calculated based on the time they finished. It was the first time in the history of signs that so many people could participate in a single event. In fact, it was extremely rare in the history of signs. So for the Banta City bicycle race each year, whether it was Banta City or even the entire Lampari Kingdom, placed great importance on it. Other than avoiding accidents from having too many participants, it was also because this competition could better display the image of Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom to the outside world. Since several years ago, there were people from other countries who came from far away to participate in this race. When a new flyer announced that the Xinfei bicycle race didn't have a limit on the nationality of the competitors, there were countless times more foreigners who came to participate in the Banta City bicycle race this year. Other than the competitors from the surrounding countries of the Lampari Kingdom, there were even several competitors from the Kanla Empire mixed in. Chairman Su, were these 3 people arranged by you? Count Will looked over the 3 Kanla Empire competitors who were being interviewed by the Banta Times reporters before turning to ask Su E beside him. No, they're completely interested in this race. It isn't related to me. Su E shook his head in denial. Is that so? But I can see that the 3 of them are riding your new flyer's newest swordfish bicycle. Your new flyer only limited the first batch to 5,000 of these bicycles, so you can't buy them in Banta City even if you want to. Could it be that you want to tell me that these 3 foreigners can casually buy them? Count Will clearly didn't believe him. Perhaps they have their own channels. That isn't strange, right? Su E gave a shrug, replying in an uncaring manner. Count Will narrowed his eyes to look at Su E. Seeing that he wasn't prepared to explain, he shook his head and didn't ask anything else. All right, let's not care about these 3 for now. But Chairman Su, as for the matter of the magic sedan race, shouldn't you explain a bit? Sir Count Will, is there something you don't understand? Su E asked back. Something you don't understand? Count Will sneered. Count Will gave a laugh. There are too many things I don't understand. Chairman Su, you told me before that this magic sedan race was a competition that you could freely participate in based on the Banta City bicycle race. So why are you limiting the participants now? Do you know that there are many young nobles in Banta City who are preparing to participate in this race, but now they are all stopped by a single sentence from you? Do you know how many times they have protested to me over the past few days? Su E laughed. I thank them for their love for this race, but it's a pity that there are some restrictions in this race. Otherwise, it'll cause a lot of trouble. Count Will slightly knit his brows. What? Chairman Su, you're still not planning on explaining? I am Banta City's city lord, and since this race is being held in Banta City, I have to ensure that it is under my control. Do you understand? I understand. Su E nodded, but his expression didn't relax at all. But Sir Count Will, this matter. It's not something you care about for now, because Her Majesty already knows about this and has approved of my actions. I think that you should receive Her Majesty's orders soon. Count Will looked at Sue with knit brows. There was a bit of doubt in his eyes and a bit of shock in his heart. He was very confused as to why an amateur magic sedan race organized by the new flyer would attract Her Majesty's attention. What shocked him was that this matter had already received Her Majesty's approval, but he still hadn't received any orders. He thought that he was one of Her Majesty's closest confidants, but when it came to this matter that was closely related to Banna City, he didn't know as much as Sue. It could be seen that the close relationship between Her Majesty and Sue far surpassed everyone's imagination. Thinking of the rumors that had spread in the Lampari kingdom, Count Will looked at Sue with a complicated gaze. Sue didn't notice Count Will's expression. When Count Will asked about the magic sedan race, he also felt a bit strange, because this race had a representative sent by His Highness Frank. A month ago, when Baron Belil came to the Principality of Constantine to tell Sue that His Highness Frank wanted to personally participate in the magic sedan race in Banna City, Sue was so surprised that he almost bit off his tongue. When he had secretly entered the Kamla Empire through Baron Belil's relationship and met with His Highness Frank in his manor, he had only met his housekeeper. Sue fully understood His Highness Frank's cold attitude and felt that it would be hard for him to enter the Kamla Empire through his relationship with His Highness Frank. But he never thought that in just a few months, His Highness Frank's attitude would change. He didn't even care about the taboo and wanted to come all the way here to participate in the magic sedan race. Sue was incomparably shocked by this idea. He was the Kamla Empire's third prince. He was an important person in the signs, coming all the way to the Lampari kingdom that was over 1,000 kilometers away to participate in this race. Not mentioning the possibility of being assassinated. Just being injured in the race was a serious consequence that Sue and the entire new flyer couldn't take. So after contacting His Highness Frank through Baron Belil, Sue firmly dissuaded him from this idea. But since His Highness Frank was very interested in the real magic sedan race, or more accurately, he was very interested in racing without any scruples, Sue discussed it with His Highness Frank and finally agreed for him to send a representative. Even if it was just His Highness Frank's representative, for Sue this was still a very important matter. So he contacted Seveny without any hesitation and reported this matter to her, obtaining Seveny's full support. No matter what His Highness Frank wanted to do, he had to ensure that the representative he sent could smoothly participate in the race and safely finish the race until they left. Otherwise, if something happened to them in Banna City, it was fine if His Highness Frank didn't pursue it, but if he did, it would be a serious diplomatic matter. Even if the Lampari kingdom was much stronger compared to before, it was impossible for them to face the wrath of a giant like the Kamla Empire. But what surprised Sue was that Seveny didn't inform Count Levi ahead of time to have him cooperate with her. Just like Count Levi said, since this race was being held in Banna City, it was impossible to avoid him as the Lord City Lord. If Seveny could have Count Levi cooperate with her, Sue would be more confident in smoothly taking care of this matter. Sue and Count Levi had doubts at the same time. For a while, no one spoke as the two fell into silence. At this time, there was a voice that came from behind them that broke the silence. Chapter 729. Hey, Lord City Lord Chairman Sue, what are you talking about? Sue turned to look and found that it was Baron Belil. He immediately apologized to Count Will and pulled Baron Belil to the side as he asked in a low voice, "Weren't you going to greet the representatives sent by His Highness Frank? Why are you here now? Where are they now?" Baron Belil looked around before coming closer to Sue and saying in a low voice, "I came looking for you because of them. The representative sent by His Highness Frank is here and they want to meet you before the race. I can see that they seem to have something to discuss with you." Sue nodded, not being surprised at all. If His Highness Frank really sent a representative to participate in this race, it would be strange. Now that he heard Baron Belil's words, he was much more assured. Sue turned to look at the lively Banna City bicycle race and replied, "All right, I'll head over after the opening ceremony. Have them wait a bit. Greet them in my name first. I'll come find you in around 2 hours." I'm afraid that won't do. Baron Belil shook his head with a troubled expression. Baron Belil revealed a troubled expression. Chairman Su, the representative sent by His Highness, wants you to meet them immediately. If you're late, I'm afraid. He was a bit surprised before his face sunk, and he gave a cold snort. What? They can't even wait for 2 hours? Baron Belil's expression was very awkward. Chairman Su, you know, they are representing His Highness Frank. They have a bit of respect for their status. Respect for their status? He looked over Baron Belil with a cold smile, making him feel very uncomfortable. Chairman Su, you mustn't take this to heart. I'll say something you don't like to hear, but if you want to cooperate with His Highness Frank, you really have to look at their faces. So, you shouldn't care that much, right? You are right, aren't you? Seeing Baron Belil's bitter smile, Su knit his brows. After being silent for a bit, he didn't move as he shook his head and said, No, I always attend the opening ceremony of the Banda City bicycle race each year, and this year won't be an exception. I'll have to trouble you to tell the representative sent by Prince Frank that I have something important to do right now. Please ask them to wait patiently for a period of time. I'll settle the matter here as soon as possible and then meet them. But no buts. He waved his hand and interrupted Baron Belil. This is my decision. Tell them for me. Baron Belil opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but seeing Su Yi's serious expression, he swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue and helplessly said, All right, I'll go entertain them first. Chairman Su, you have to come quickly. Seeing Baron Belil leave in a hurry, he slightly knit his brows. When he sneaked into the Kamla Empire with Baron Belil to see Prince Frank, but he only met his housekeeper, he had already had a deep impression of Prince Frank's arrogance. Now that Prince Frank had taken the initiative to send a representative to participate in the competition, it was obvious that he had taken the initiative to cooperate. However, his representatives were still acting in such a manner, which really made him feel very unhappy. What did Belil say to make you this unhappy? Count Levi saw that he was still knitting his brows and looking dissatisfied, so he couldn't help asking this in a curious voice. It's nothing. He shook his head and threw away the dissatisfaction brought by Prince Frank's representative. After thinking for a bit, he continued, Sir Count, before the opening ceremony begins, let's discuss something else first. You should know about the magic illusion projector that our company released 2 months ago, right? I do. What about it? As for this magic illusion projector, our company hopes to set up 5 of them in different places in Banda City. Other than playing the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's new film, there will also be some advertisements. The morning sun rose into the sky, and the opening ceremony of the Banda City bicycle race began at 9. With the experience of holding events in the past few years, the opening ceremony went on in an orderly manner. But because there were too many participants this year, the opening ceremony was a bit longer. When it was all over, it was already close to 10. It was a good thing that Count Levi and canceled 2 small segments at the last minute, which allowed them to announce the start of the race at 10. After watching the first day's participants charge out of the starting line, he looked at the time and found that it was close to 10, so he immediately bid farewell to Count Levi. Count Levi was a bit surprised. Chairman Su, you're not staying for lunch? There are many people who are looking forward to having lunch with you. He revealed an apologetic smile. I'm afraid I can't today. Baron Belil found me just now because he had something urgent for me to take care of. Seeing that Count Levi was still a bit doubtful, Sui gave a cough and lowered his voice. It's related to the matter we discussed before. Count Levi gave an O sound. All right, you can go. I'll explain it to them. Many thanks, Sir Count Levi. Sui nodded before turning to leave. Seeing Sui quickly walk off the stage and get into his personal magic sedan, Count Levi knit his brows and revealed a doubtful look. Just what was it that Sui would go around the Lord City Lord and directly contact Her Majesty? When Count Levi was doubtful, there were quick footsteps that came from behind him. One of Count Levi's confidants in the City Lord Manor quickly came over. Sir Count Levi, a secret letter from Her Majesty. It really came at the right time. Count Levi raised a brow. He took the letter from his confidant and went to a secluded corner. After looking over the letter, he was surprised. This Chairman Sue, his skills really aren't small. Sue E. drove the pure, white magic sedan to Baron Belil's private manor outside Banda City, not meeting any obstacles along the way. After getting out of the car, Sue E. looked at the time and found that it wasn't even 11 yet, so he gave a satisfied nod. Even if he wasn't satisfied with the attitude of the representative sent by His Highness Frank, he attached great importance to the cooperation with the Canla Empire. He hoped that he could enter the Canla Empire's market through His Highness Frank, so he attached great importance to his relationship with His Highness Frank. He could stick to his principles and attend the opening ceremony, but if the conditions allowed it, he hoped that he could have a good relationship with His Highness Frank's representative. There was still an hour before lunch, so he could use this time to have a good discussion with His Highness Frank's representative. Chairman Sue, you're here. Baron Belil's housekeeper Keegots came out of the manor to welcome him. After seeing Sue E., he immediately led him into the manor with a smile. The Lord Baron and the guests are waiting for you in the reception hall. Please come with me. Sue E. nodded and followed Keegots into the manor. After passing through a small garden, the largest reception hall of the manor was in front of them. Before he reached the gate, he heard a slightly shrill voice coming from inside. Hey, Baron Belil, is Chairman Sue coming or not? If he really doesn't plan on coming, then we might as well leave now. Baron Belil's voice sounded. Please don't. Manager Mancini, please calm down. Since Chairman Sue said that he will come, then he will definitely come. He attaches great importance to your arrival and has been preparing for it since a month ago. How could he not come to see you? Please wait a bit longer. I think he will be here soon. Soon? Oomph. You've already said that many times. The sharp voice was filled with mockery. This Chairman Sue actually dares to neglect us like this. This is simply an insult to us. Baron Belil, we're here representing His Highness the Prince. Neglecting us is the same as neglecting His Highness the Prince. He's got guts. Sue E., who was about to reach the entrance of the reception hall, originally had a deep frown, but after hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. This fellow's words were exactly the same as what Prince Frank's butler Como had said before. Could it be that Prince Frank's subordinates all like to use this kind of tone to intimidate others? Baron Belil's bitter laughter came from the reception hall. No. Manager Mancini, please don't misunderstand. Chairman Sue definitely doesn't have the slightest intention of neglecting you. He even specially asked me to take good care of you, afraid that you'll wait too long. Right now, he really has something important to attend to, but I believe that he'll come to see you soon. Please wait a bit. Wait a bit. Something important? What could be more important than us? Manager Mancini was still dissatisfied with Baron Belil's answer and coldly snorted, Baron Belil, don't blame us for not giving you face. We'll give Chairman Sue another half an hour. If he doesn't appear before lunch, then we'll turn around and leave. As for how we'll report this to His Highness, you should be able to imagine. All right. I'll immediately send someone to hurry Chairman Sue and have him hurry. You. A bright voice suddenly sounded from the entrance of the reception hall, interrupting Baron Belil's words. There's no need to rush me, Belil. I'm already here. Baron Belil turned to look at the entrance in shock. When he saw Sue Yi's figure, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. Everyone else in the hall also turned their gazes to Sue Yi. Among them, there was a white-faced man with a face full of wrinkles sitting across from Baron Belil. His gaze was the sharpest. He coldly looked at Sue Yi for a while before asking in a sharp voice, You're Sue Yi? Chapter 730. Hearing this voice that was as sharp as a duck's, Sue Yi's eyes couldn't help looking at his smooth face. Not to mention a single strand of beard, there wasn't even a single strand of hair on his face. Then there was a name that he had almost forgotten that flashed in his mind. Eunuch. That's right, this old man. It was very likely that he was a rarely seen eunuch in the signs. Eunuchs were creatures that were rarely seen in the signs. Currently, they only existed in the Kamla Empire's royal palace, which was similar to the eunuchs of ancient China's royal palace on Earth. Other than this, even the Malur Empire's royal palace didn't have this kind of creature. As for the royal palaces of small countries like the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr, they wouldn't have this kind of creature at all. When Lampuri XIII and King Eric were still alive, there were quite a few men in the Lampari Kingdom's royal palace, but there weren't any eunuchs. After 70 took the throne, she changed all the servants in the royal palace to maids, so it was even more impossible for there to be eunuchs. So he had transmigrated to this world for 8 years now, but he had never seen a eunuch before. He had only heard of them once in a book about the customs of the signs. Now that he had seen a eunuch appear in front of him, Su Yi's expression couldn't help becoming a bit strange. Even though it was just a flash of a strange expression, the old eunuch was still keenly aware of it. His expression wasn't that good to begin with, but became even uglier. "Hey, I'm asking you, are you Su Yi?" The old eunuch that Baron Belil called Manager Mancini raised his voice to ask this. Su Yi immediately looked away and gave Manager Mancini a bow before replying with a faint smile. "Yes, I'm the New Flyers chairman, Su. May I ask if you are Lord Mancini, Prince Frank's chief of internal affairs?" Seeing Su Yi's respectful attitude, Manager Mancini's expression relaxed a bit. He gave a slight nod and said with a snort, "That's right, I am. Chairman Su, we have come to see you on the orders of His Highness. I presume you already know why we are here, right?" Su Yi smiled faintly, his gaze sweeping over the 5 sturdy-looking young men standing behind Manager Mancini. These must be the racers sent by His Highness to participate in the competition, right? No, they're all my bodyguards. He is the real racer participating in this competition. Manager Mancini shook his head, but pointed his finger behind the 5 muscular men. Su Yi looked over in surprise and saw the 5 strong men move aside, revealing a skinny young boy hiding behind them. This boy didn't look to be more than 20 years old. In reality, he wasn't all that skinny, but compared to the 5 strong men, he appeared a bit skinnier. When he saw Su Yi look over, he also raised his head and looked over. His expression was filled with curiosity and provocation. Su Yi couldn't help but smile. He thought to himself that this kind of young man could be seen everywhere. He just didn't know where Prince Frank had found him. Since His Highness has carefully selected him, then his driving skills must be extremely outstanding. I just don't know. Has he taken the driver's test? Su Yi swept his gaze over the boy and asked a question that stunned everyone. Everyone looked at each other. Only Baron Belial had a strange expression on his face. Manager Mancini stared blankly and couldn't help but ask, "Driver's license? What's that?" Su Yi gave a rough explanation of the use of a driver's license, but was immediately met with a sneer from Manager Mancini. "We are people from the Kamla Empire. Do we need the recognition of your new flyer of the Lampari Kingdom? His Highness admits that he can drive, so he can drive. Other than that, His Highness often drives magic sedans. Could it be that Chairman Su wants His Highness to take the driver's test as well?" Su Yi gave a shrug, not planning on tangling with this question. "All right, but no matter what, I ask him to at least follow the rules of the road while he's here. Otherwise, if something happens, it will be very troublesome." Manager Mancini glared at him. "What? Who dares to cause trouble for us?" Seeing the looks of disdain on the faces of the young boy and the 5 guards, Su Yi completely understood the evaluation of the Kamla Empire that the people around him had given him. This large empire, other than the Malur Empire, when facing other countries, they would always be aloof. Su Yi didn't plan on pursuing this matter. Anyway, these people would only be here for a few days, and they would go back after the competition. As long as they were a bit more careful, there shouldn't be any problems. After a pause, Su Yi began discussing the details of the competition with Manager Mancini. But when he was about to speak, Manager Mancini waved his hand to cut him off. "You don't need to tell me about these small matters. I have something else to discuss with Chairman Su." After saying this, Manager Mancini looked at Baron Belil. Baron Belil immediately understood and stood up to greet Manager Mancini. He then looked at Su Yi before leaving the hall, while also calling out the 2 maids in charge of clothes. Afterwards, the 5 guards and the young boy left the hall together, leaving only Sue E and Manager Mancini inside. The room sank into silence for a moment. Sue E glanced at Manager Mancini, took a sip of tea, and calmly said, "Sir Manager, please speak." Manager Mancini didn't immediately open his mouth. Instead, he looked Sue E up and down a few times, as if he wanted to see through him from head to toe. Sue E, on the other hand, had a calm and unruffled expression as he sat there casually with a slight smile on his face. He maintained a calm expression as he met Manager Mancini's gaze. After a while, Manager Mancini withdrew his scrutinizing gaze and nodded, but then snorted lightly. It was unknown what kind of evaluation he had of Sue Yi's performance. Cough. Chairman Sue, when you met with Como last time, you proposed to invest in a magic machine factory in the Empire, right? That's right, Sir Manager. Sue nodded with a light smile. At the time, I only had a rough idea of this proposal. After I came back, I thought it through carefully and summarized this proposal, creating a detailed proposal. As Sue spoke, he took out a document from his bag and handed it over to Manager Mancini. Please take a look, Sir Manager. This proposal is extremely detailed, and I believe that it will definitely satisfy His Highness. If His Highness agrees to this cooperation, I believe that His Highness will earn at least 1,000,000 gold coins every year. Manager Mancini glanced at the proposal in Sue Yi's hand, but didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he waved his hand and said coldly, "There's no need to look at it. Chairman Sue, it's impossible for His Highness to agree to this plan." Sue was startled and couldn't help but frown. Why? I believe that this proposal is extremely beneficial to His Highness, not to mention that you haven't looked at it yet, Sir Manager. I said there's no need to look at it, so there's no need to look at it. Manager Mancini snorted coldly. Chairman Sue, I have to remind you that you still don't seem to understand your own status. Sue Yi's frown deepened. Sir Manager, I don't understand what you mean. You don't understand? Baron Belil has always praised you as a smart person in front of me, but now it seems that you aren't that great. Manager Mancini shook his head. Chairman Sue, could it be that you still don't understand? At the end of the day, you are nothing more than a small merchant from the Principality of Constantine. Yet you keep saying that you want to cooperate with His Highness the Prince of the Canla Empire. Don't you think that this is too funny? Sue looked at Manager Mancini's mocking expression, as well as the undisguised arrogance in his eyes. He gave a sigh in his heart before relaxing his brows and calming himself down. Then, Sir Manager, according to you, oh no, according to His Highness' intentions, how should we cooperate? I'll remind you again, you aren't qualified to discuss cooperation with His Highness. You're just lucky that His Highness is a bit interested in your company's magic sedan, so he specially allowed you to give him some things in exchange for his trust in you. Do you understand? Sue honestly shook his head. Sorry, Sir Manager, I still don't understand. Manager Mancini gave a sigh, looking like a child that couldn't be taught. He shook his head and continued. All right, then I'll explain it to you more clearly. As long as you're obedient and make His Highness happy, if you and New Flyer want to do anything in our Canla Empire, His Highness will take care of His Highness, making it much more convenient. If His Highness is more satisfied in the future, you'll receive more care. Do you understand now? A strange smile appeared on Sue Yi's face as he gave a slight nod. Yes, I understand. Then, Sir Manager, how does His Highness want to cooperate with us? No, what does His Highness want us to do? Hearing the change in Sue Yi's tone, Manager Mancini gave a satisfied nod. He took out a thin document from his chest and threw it to Sue Yi. This is the contract I made according to His Highness' intentions. Take a look and sign it. Sue Yi took it and opened it, finding that it really was a contract. The final signature was New Flyer, and the other side was a company that Sue Yi had never heard of before. No need to be surprised. That is a company that belongs to His Highness, you know. Manager Mancini explained. Sue Yi nodded and began looking over the contents of the contract. After looking at it for less than half a minute, Sue Yi's lips couldn't help curling into a cold smile. Hey, this is Highness Frank. He really has such a high attitude and such a big appetite. Chapter 731. According to the schedule, 2 days after the Banta City bicycle race, the Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station would officially begin. The opening of this race also represented the opening of this year's Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station. Because last year's Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station had won a total of 84,000 gold coins. This year's Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station had attracted even more attention. For the Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station, from the beginning to the end, for an entire week, the various newspapers of the Lampari Kingdom and even the newspapers of the surrounding countries had all reported on this race in detail. Because of these reports, the bicycle companies that participated in this race received a large amount of exposure, allowing the brands under their names to receive even more recognition. When the Shinfei Bicycle Championship Banta Station ended, a rider from the Anjit Chamber of Commerce won the championship and received the 5,000 gold coins. The craze for bicycles that lasted for half a month finally died down a bit. In the past half a month, the sales of all the bicycles produced by the Chamber of Commerce that participated in the competition had greatly increased. Not mentioning the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Of the other 7 bicycle companies, the Anjit Chamber of Commerce had the most exaggerated increase in sales. In just half a month, they had sold over 7,600 bicycles. Compared to last month's sales, it was an increase of over 300%. The other 6 bicycle companies also had different increases in sales. The lowest was over 50%, and the highest was close to 200%. Compared to them, the New Flyer's increase in sales was the smallest, only increasing by 17% compared to last month. But it was only an increase of 17%, but this increase far surpassed the Anjit Chamber of Commerce's increase. This was because Shinfei brand bicycles sold over 38,400 bicycles last month. An increase of 17% was over 6,500 bicycles. In the end, in the bicycle industry, New Flyer was a giant that the other companies couldn't compare to. But based on the current situation, the other companies had finally grown quite well with the support and promotion of Sui. In time, they might even be able to catch up with the Shinfei merchants. And this was precisely what many people, especially other merchants, did not understand about Sui. New Flyer didn't need to do anything to monopolize the market and make more money for itself. Why would it spend so much effort to help its competitor? Wasn't Sui worried that New Flyer would be overtaken by other companies one day? Wouldn't New Flyer fall because of his lack of market share? Even though it was a joke to say that New Flyer was on the decline, it was still necessary to be worried. Among these people, President Cruz was the one who was most affected. Ever since he came into contact with New Flyer and got to know Sui had done countless puzzling things like this. President Cruz had asked Sui this question countless times, but Sui had never given him a direct answer. So every time he saw Sui's actions, the doubt in President Cruz's heart would deepen a bit. Even if he was close to being numb because he had seen it too much in private, he would often complain about this to Sui when he had nothing to do. For example, today, "Hey, Sui, seeing the Anjit Chamber of Commerce's bicycle sales, aren't you worried?" President Cruz sat down beside Sui and looked at the situation in front of him as he asked this to Sui in a relaxed voice. Right now, he and Sui were at the Magic Sedan racetrack that had been built half a year ago outside Banta City. There were over 10 Magic Sedans of different colors and models driving at high speeds in the center of the track, adapting to the track and preparing for the Magic Sedan race that was about to begin. Compared to the Shinfei bicycle race that was widely watched before, this Magic Sedan race was much less watched. Other than the Banta Times and the Lampuri Weekly that had reported on this race, the other newspapers didn't mention it at all. The reason for this was first because the Magic Sedan was too far away for normal people. They couldn't afford it and couldn't touch it, so naturally they didn't care about it. Secondly, it was because Sui did this on purpose. Su Yi's first priority was to promote bicycles. He wasn't in a rush to promote the magic sedan. This was because he knew that whether it was the Lampari Kingdom or the surrounding countries, the magic sedan was a high-end thing that normal people couldn't afford to play with at all. At this stage, his main targets were those merchants and nobles who were relatively well off. This was a small circle, so he didn't need to pay too much attention to promoting it. The merchants and nobles had their own ways of contacting each other, so after a new thing like the magic sedan was released, it didn't take much effort to spread the news in these two circles. In the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries, if a merchant or a noble didn't have a Shinfei brand magic sedan, they would be considered outdated and wouldn't even have the face to leave their homes. Based on this situation, He wouldn't promote it before the time was right. The magic sedan race that was being held right now was considered an amateur race. Other than giving the young merchants and nobles a place to race, it was also helping to test the performance of the magic sedan. And because Prince Frank was participating in today's race, it wasn't suitable to promote it. So he didn't even open the race to the public. Rather, he sealed off the entire venue. Other than allowing close people like Chairman Cruz to come in, no one else was allowed in. Why should I panic? He turned and looked at Chairman Cruz with a bit of a smile. The Enja Chamber of Commerce's bicycle sales have greatly increased. This is a good thing. I can't be happier. Chairman Cruz rolled his eyes, looking like he already knew that he would respond like this. After pausing, Chairman Cruz reached out to pat Su Yi's shoulder and said with a serious expression, Su Yi, you have your own plans. I can understand this. But I have to warn you, if you do this in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding small countries, there might not be a problem. But if you do this in the Kanla Empire, it's very likely that you'll be swallowed by the people of the Kanla Empire. So, you should be careful. He took a deep look at him. Did you hear the news? Chairman Cruz angrily pointed his lips at the crowd. The Kanla Empire sent people to contact you. Others might not know. But how could I not know? He nodded. This news was only sealed to the public, but it wasn't sealed to everyone, so it wasn't strange that Chairman Cruz received this news. Then how much do you know? He asked. Chairman Cruz shook his head. Not much. But I've heard that the Kanla Empire's side has given you an excessive request? He revealed a faint smile and gave a nod. The Kanla Empire's request wasn't just excessive, it was simply excessive. In a contract Manager Mancini gave he actually requested that New Flyer give all the magic sedan production technology to His Highness Frank. Then he requested that New Flyer build a magic sedan production factory in His Highness Frank's territory in the Kanla Empire. Not only did New Flyer have to provide the technology, they also had to provide some production magic machines, as well as train a group of qualified workers. This meant that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had to help Prince Frank build a factory that could independently produce magic glue cars on his territory. At the same time, they had to provide complete technical support and guarantee. Compared to this, the contract that required the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to build a standard racetrack on His Highness Frank's territory, as well as providing maintenance personnel, it wasn't even worth mentioning. As for what His Highness Frank would give in return, it was clear that there wasn't a single gold coin, and there wasn't any material return at all. Even when Manager Mancini finished looking over the contract, he looked like this was a gift for Yi. So Yi had to be grateful for it. Perhaps the only thing that could be considered return was that Manager Mancini said that as long as the Frestec Chamber of Commerce signed the contract and did what they said, His Highness Frank would take care of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. He didn't give any opinions on the contract at that time. He just told Manager Mancini that he needed some time to consider it. However, when he saw Manager Mancini's dissatisfied look, he had already given the other side a death sentence in his heart. This wasn't called cooperation. This was called licking his boots. Even though Yi could admit that Prince Frank had a noble status and that the New Flyer could give up a large portion of the benefits when cooperating with him, all for the sake of smoothly entering the Kanla Empire and opening up the huge market that was the Kanla Empire, he definitely wouldn't admit that he needed to lick His Highness' boots. If he really did agree to this contract, then in Yi's eyes, New Flyer would be no different from Prince Frank's dog. Perhaps there are many people on this continent who would love nothing more than to become Prince Frank's dog, but Sui definitely wouldn't accept it. Even though this would block any possibility of entering the Camla Empire through his relationship with Prince Frank, Sui wasn't too disappointed. Through this matter, in addition to what had happened when Russell had visited, Sui had a deeper understanding of the situation within the Camla Empire. This was an incomparably huge empire, but it was a decaying empire that thought too highly of itself and had almost lost all motivation to move forward. In the past, Sui might have placed his hopes on the Camla Empire to revitalize the development of the entire magic machine industry in the signs, allowing the magic machine industry to change the entire continent. But now, he had given up on this idea. The Kandra Empire, in his eyes, there wasn't much difference between the surrounding small countries and the Kandra Empire. A bigger market? It was just a bigger piece of fat meat. Chapter 732. President Cruz and Sui had known each other for so many years, so he naturally knew Sui quite well. Seeing the strange smile on his face, he immediately understood that Sui's negotiations with the Camla Empire had fallen through. He revealed a happy smile, but then he felt that this wasn't right. After thinking about it, he raised his hand to pat Sui's shoulder and comforted him. This isn't that big of a deal. We are merchants in the end. We can't do business that loses money, don't you think? If the Camla Empire's request is too much, then we can just not cooperate with them. They're not the only country on this continent. Speaking of this, President Cruz seemed to lack confidence. Although the Camla Empire was not the only country on the signs, there was only one other country as large as the Camla Empire, the Malar Empire. The huge market of the Camla Empire was the dream of any merchant on this continent. If they were to completely give it up, it would obviously be a pity and heartache. Previously, when the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce went to the Camla Empire to promote road paving, they were met with many setbacks. After they returned with no success, President Cruz was so depressed that he did not eat well for several days. From this standpoint, he felt that he could understand the disappointment in Sui's heart. But Sui still had a smile on his face and did not look disappointed at all. Seeing President Cruz's sigh, Sui laughed and shook his head. I didn't say that I would give up the Camla Empire. Even if we don't cooperate with Prince Frank, we can cooperate with other people in the Camla Empire, right? Besides, our new flyer's various household magic machines are currently selling well in Wimbledon City. Even if I don't do anything, I believe that the sales will continue to increase. Sooner or later, we will be able to truly open this market. The failure of the cooperation now is just a small interlude. It won't affect the overall situation. President Cruz thought about it and realized that Sui was right. The new flyer is different from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce went to the Camla Empire to promote the paving of roads. This kind of thing involved a lot of things, and they definitely had to get the approval of the Camla Empire. The household magic machines that New Flyer sold were normal products that weren't that different from other products. They could be sold in the Camla Empire at will. President Cruz was certain that the New Flyer household magic machines would become popular in the Camla Empire, just like the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries. But if you don't agree to Prince Frank's conditions this time, aren't you worried about angering him and causing all sorts of obstacles in the Camla Empire? President Cruz asked worriedly. To be honest, I'm a bit worried, but won't affect the overall situation. Sui said with a faint smile. In the end, Prince Frank isn't the emperor of the Camla Empire, and he isn't the only prince in the Camla Empire, right? Seeing the confident smile on Sui's face, President Cruz really wanted to ask why Sui was this confident. No matter how much influence the new flyer had in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries, it was only a small company in the Camla Empire. If Prince Frank really wanted to target the new flyer, he definitely had many methods. The only hope was that His Highness Frank really looked down on the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, so it was better if he ignored this matter. Okay, Cruz, don't worry about me for now. You should think about how to pave roads in the Camla Empire. Sue patted President Cruz and said with a smile, "This is the first road your company is going to build in the Kanla Empire, so you have to make sure it's perfect." Hearing Sue mention this matter, President Cruz's spirit was suddenly shaken. Previously, after being rejected by the Kanla Empire, President Cruz thought that it would be difficult to enter the Kanla Empire to pave roads in the future. But he didn't expect that not long ago, Sue would suddenly find him and say that he had made some connections. The Kanla Empire would most likely invite the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to enter the Kanla Empire to pave roads. President Cruz was very surprised by this news, but with his understanding of Sue, he knew that he definitely wouldn't speak carelessly. So after the excitement passed, his heart was filled with gratitude towards Sue. Although the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was considered a decent company in Banda City, its influence was only limited to Banda City. It could only be considered a small company in the entire Lampari Kingdom. But when Sue found him and gave him something called cement, as well as the technology to pave roads, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce quickly grew with the push of Sue. Now, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had already paved over 100,000 kilometers of roads in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries. They had also built countless reinforced concrete houses and over 100 high-rise buildings, becoming the top construction company in the surrounding countries. At the same time, they were the only company that was recognized by everyone as a road paving company. Now that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was mentioned, there wasn't a single person in the surrounding countries that didn't know of them. In just 5 years, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had gone from a small company in Banda City to a first-class company that had great influence in the surrounding countries. The most important reason why the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce could develop this much was because of Sue and his new flyer. So President Cruz had always treated Sue as his most firm ally, supporting his decisions at all times. Now that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had been blocked in the process of entering the Kanla Empire, it was actually Sue who opened a path for them. This made President Cruz even more grateful to Sue. He believed that as long as they could build this first road, the Kanla Empire would realize the benefits of roads. The Kanla Empire definitely wouldn't be able to resist this temptation and would insist on building more roads. Thinking of the incomparably large Kanla Empire that was several times larger than all the surrounding countries added together, President Cruz's heart was filled with excitement. If they could monopolize the roads in the Kanla Empire, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce would definitely become a first-class company on the continent. Yes, our company will definitely focus all our efforts on paving this road. President Cruz gave a strong nod. "I will gather the best people, the best materials, the best logistics, and the best supervision. In short, everything will be the best. I want those guys in the Kanla Empire to see that this road is 10,000 times better than the broken dirt roads they're still using." From President Cruz's impassioned words, Sue could easily understand the resentment in President Cruz's heart after being rejected by the Kanla Empire. He couldn't help but laugh. "All right, I believe that your company will definitely do a good job. But Cruz, some roads in the Lampari Kingdom have already been damaged, so you can't ignore the follow-up maintenance. For example, there's a section of the Falling Rain Road that's almost completely collapsed. You have to fix it first." President Cruz gave an awkward smile. "Of course, the Falling Rain Road is the first road our company built. I was planning on renovating such a memorable road and using this opportunity to advertise it." That's a good idea," Sue said with a nod of praise. Perhaps it was because he had been with Sue for a long time, but President Cruz had learned how to use all opportunities or even create opportunities to advertise his company. This kind of marketing method was rarely seen in signs, but it was very popular. The two discussed the matter of paving roads in the Kanla Empire for a while. There were 4 faint lights that suddenly appeared in the center of the racetrack. They gathered in the air and formed 4 rectangular screens of light that were around 10 meters long and 6 meters wide. The 4 screens of light were connected to each other, forming a rectangular shape. Each screen was facing one side of the racetrack, ensuring that no matter where one was, one could see the screens. The 4 screens of light flashed, and a beautiful tiger girl with a furry tail appeared on the screen. Friends, hello everyone. This is Banta City's Sheen Fei Racetrack. We are currently broadcasting the Sheen Fei Free Racing Championship for everyone. Everyone can see that we are still in the preparation stage. The image on the screen shook and changed to a view from high up in the sky. From this perspective, one could see that the entire racing track was oval in shape. Below the spectator stands was an irregular and winding track. There were magic sedans of various colors running at high speeds on the track, and one could hear the roars of the cars and the sound of the tires rubbing against the ground. After stopping for a while, the image quickly descended and returned to the side of the track, going into close range mode. That beautiful tiger girl had already arrived beside a pure white magic sedan that was parked on the side of the track. Hello everyone. We found a contestant who has finished his preparations and is currently resting for the race. I think that everyone should be very familiar with this contestant. He is Pooh. President Cruz had been drinking water while looking at the changes on the screen with a look of surprise. While listening to Su Yi's explanation of the magic illusion projection system, he kept nodding in praise. Now that he suddenly saw the figure on the screen, he couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of water, almost spraying it all over Su Yi's face. Coo. President Cruz coughed for a while before awkwardly grabbing Su Yi's collar. He pointed at the screen in shock and shouted with a look of disbelief, "Hey, Su Yi, is there a mistake? This old man is also participating in this race?" Chapter 733. Su Yi curled his lips, looking like he was making a fuss over nothing. What is strange about this? One of grandfather's hobbies is racing cars, don't you know? Chairman Cruz shook his head in a daze. Looking at instructor Carmilla, who was being interviewed by the Tiger Girl daily, he still felt that it was a bit unbelievable. This was an archmagus, not to mention the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding small countries. Even in the Kamla Empire and the Malar Empire, archmagi were peak existences. This kind of important person should be aloof in people's imaginations, like a god that didn't eat the food of mortals. But what was he seeing now? With a head of silver hair, the spirited instructor Carmilla was sitting in the driver's seat of the pure white magic sedan. She was being interviewed in a relaxed manner while skillfully controlling the steering wheel, looking like an old hand. This, although Chairman Cruz had heard Su Yi mention before that instructor Carmilla liked to drive magic sedans, he had never associated the word racing with instructor Carmilla. Even if he saw her sitting in this clearly modified magic sedan, he still couldn't accept it. All right, if you're surprised now, you might be scared to death later. Su Yi patted Chairman Cruz's shoulder with a smile, telling him to calm down. Chairman Cruz looked at Su Yi. Could it be that there was something even more shocking than instructor Carmilla appearing on the track? Su Yi smiled without saying a thing. He pointed at the light screen in the middle of the track, telling him to wait patiently. Chairman Cruz could only look at the light screen in a confused manner while looking around the track, wanting to see something special ahead of time. However, other than the magic sedans driving at high speeds, there wasn't anything special. After waiting for a while, the magic sedans on the track stopped and lined up behind the starting line. The scene on the light screen flashed again, and the Tiger Girl, Daily, appeared on the light screen again. Hello, everyone. As you can see on the screen, all the cars participating in the race are already on standby behind the starting line. The race is about to begin. President Cruz suddenly turned to Su Yi and asked, "Who is she talking to?" There are only so many people in the stadium, so everyone can see it. Oh, this is to make her develop this habit. Because according to my plan, these matches will be broadcasted to the audience outside the venue, and even to the audience in other cities. Therefore, I have to cultivate this habit first, so that I won't have to correct it in the future. How are you going to broadcast it simultaneously? President Cruz was even more puzzled. Su Yi revealed a smile and didn't explain. If he wanted to answer this question, it would involve the magic array resonance technology the magic wave signal transmission network, and other things that the Frestac Chamber of Commerce was currently developing and would be developing in the future, so it was too troublesome to explain. Moreover, even if President Cruz was an ally, there was no need to tell him these secrets that were unrelated to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Seeing that Sue didn't reply, President Cruz nodded and didn't ask anymore. On the screen, Daly continued to give the opening speech. After the opening speech, she began to introduce the contestants. Now I'll introduce everyone to the contestants participating in this race. First, I'll introduce the one closest to the inner circle. Everyone should be familiar with this racer. It is the most respected teacher, Carmilla. The scene on the light screen changed, and teacher Carmilla appeared on the light screen. She waved her hand at the light screen with a smile on her face. Sue saw this and couldn't help smiling. When the Frestac Chamber of Commerce first brought the magic illusion camera that used the illusion magic array synchronization technology to Archmagus Camilla, having him act in front of the magic illusion camera to make a promotional video, Archmagus Camilla was very resistant. Now that 2 months had passed, he could already pose in front of the camera with ease. Next, let's look at the person to the right of teacher Carmilla. The image on the light screen shifted, and what appeared on the light screen was a beautiful young woman with pointed ears. She's actually an elf? President Cruz was startled and couldn't help shouting. Is there a mistake? Even elves like to race? This is too strange. So he chuckled. He thought that this elf not only liked to race, she was a fanatic. He had always thought that teacher Carmilla liked to race, but after seeing Elder Lasagna's crazy love for racing, he felt that teacher Carmilla could only concede defeat. This contestant is Elder Lasagna from the Principality of Constantine's Moonshadow tribe. Although this is Elder Lasagna's first time participating in this kind of official racing competition, it is said that she often competes with teacher Carmilla in terms of driving skills, and both sides are evenly matched. Therefore, it can be inferred that Elder Lasagna's racing skills are also very outstanding. Elder Lasagna on the light screen revealed a faint smile, displaying the elegant temperament unique to elves. Coupled with her beautiful appearance, it was impossible to associate her with the intense sport of racing. The scene on the light screen changed to the third person. It was the representative sent by Prince Frank, the thin and weak boy that Sue had met before. His name was Harvey Candy. His expression on the light screen was serious as he looked forward. He seemed a bit nervous, but he was also filled with fighting spirit. Sue revealed a faint smile and shook his head. It was good that this fellow was confident, but when the race began, it would be good if he wasn't scared by teacher Carmilla and Elder Lasagna. The 4th to 9th drivers were all nobles of Bannis City, including Baron Belil. These fellows were the main force of this race, so Sue Yi's race was focused on these people. If it wasn't for the special situation of this race, Sue wanted to change all the contestants to people like them. The 10th driver was even more surprising. It was actually a beast man. This was a wolf man who came from the Valar tribe. Since the Valar tribe cooperated with the new flyer, the living conditions of the wolfmen in the tribe had greatly improved. This wolfman had a close relationship with Chief Valar, so he benefited even more. Moreover, he was also very interested in the magic sedan, so he also participated in this race. The 11th rider behind the werewolf was even more surprising. It was actually a dwarf rider. Everyone knew that dwarves were much shorter than humans, so his magic sedan had been specially modified according to his stature, allowing him to drive as he pleased. Sue had personally seen Camby and the other dwarven engineers doing their best to modify this magic sedan. According to what they said, this magic sedan not only carried their dignity as magic mechanical engineers, it also carried the hopes of all the dwarves. If this magic sedan couldn't obtain a good result in the race, it would be embarrassing for them. Seeing the dwarf sitting in the driver's seat with a serious look, Sue couldn't help smiling. Camby's group, didn't they know how much pressure this would give him? Chairman Cruz on the side was already stunned. Just what was going on with this race? Just the fact that Archmagus Camilla had come to participate was already shocking enough, but the beastmen and dwarves had also appeared. The most exaggerated thing was that there was even an elven elder. Other than the halflings that had recently come out of legends, This small race actually gathered all the races on the continent. After introducing the dwarf driver, all the racers were introduced. There were a total of 11 cars and 11 racers. This was the current situation of the race. After all, the magic sedan hadn't been popularized in this world yet, so there weren't many people who had the ability to race. After a while, the Tiger Girl Daily announced that everything was ready and the race was about to begin. After a while, there was a 10-digit countdown that appeared on the light screen. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. When the large begin word appeared on the light screen, the 11 magic sedans on the track began to roar at the same time. Suyi's expression changed slightly. This was a magic sedan that used the fire magic engine. This was because of the innate limitations of the wind magic engine. But when he heard the giant fire magic engine's roar from the fire magic engine being activated, he thought of a problem. In order to pursue speed, the new flyer's main research was focused on the fire magic engine, causing the wind magic engine's development to stagnate. But compared to this, even if the fire magic engine gave the magic sedan an advantage in terms of speed, it consumed several times more energy than the wind magic engine. Moreover, the fire magic engine was very noisy, so the magic sedan with the fire magic engine was much louder than the magic sedan with the wind magic engine. So the wind magic engine also had strong advantages. Not to mention that after the wind magic engine was developed, it was possible to increase its speed. For most normal people, they didn't need to be that fast. It was enough to reach 100 to 150 kilometers per hour. According to Suyi's calculations on the wind magic engine, this was a number that could be reached. Thinking of this, Suyi suddenly found that there was a problem with his research on the magic engine. It wasn't a problem to strengthen the development of the fire magic engine because it wasn't just used in the magic sedans. It would also be used in the magic boats, the magic airships, and the large passenger and transport magic cars, but they couldn't ignore the development of the wind magic engine. Perhaps the wind magic engine had many limitations in other fields, but in the civilian world, it had great potential. Chapter 734. While Suyi was thinking about the new flyer's future plans, the race had already reached its most tense moment. In the beginning, other than the dwarf Murloc's magic sedan charging out first, the others were about the same. But after 2 laps, there was a gap that began to appear. Archmagus Camilla and Elder Lasagna's race cars were far in the lead. Other than their outstanding driving skills, the more important reason was that they were crazy enough. Other people would always subconsciously dodge when there was a possibility of collision, but the two of them only cared about continuing to charge forward without any scruples. This clearly came from their confidence in their own strength, knowing that they wouldn't be threatened. The others, on the other hand, didn't have the same confidence. As a result, the others could only obediently make way for them, allowing them to rush to the front. But other than these two, the other 9 racers weren't that different. Prince Frank's representative Harvey Candy was in the middle. He wasn't outstanding, but he wasn't behind. He could only be considered average. This performance naturally made Manager Mancini and the others watching from the stands dissatisfied. But in Suyi's eyes, this was already considered outstanding. It had to be known that even Prince Frank had only come into contact with a magic sedan a few months ago, so this Harvey Candy had only been in contact with it for a short time. To be able to have such high driving skills in such a short period of time, being able to keep pace with Baron Belil, who wanted to live in a magic sedan all day, it could be considered very incredible. However, Harvey Candy was obviously not satisfied with his performance. There were several times when he tried to overtake them through the bends. There were times when he succeeded, but there were times when he was overtaken by his opponent. After several laps, he was still in the middle of the pack. According to this trend, when the race ended, he would still be in this position and it wouldn't be possible for him to change. Suyi looked over the field before looking at Manager Mancini, sitting in the distance with a serious expression. If Harvey Candy lost in the end, Manager Mancini's face would probably turn ugly. Very soon, the race came to the final lap. Seeing that the outcome had been decided, Suyi stood up and walked over to Manager Mancini. Manager Mancini, My apologies for the lack of hospitality we've shown you these past few days. After the competition is over, I would like to invite you to my private manor as a guest for lunch." Seeing the smile on Su Yi's face, Mancini frowned slightly. "Chairman Su, is this a farewell banquet? Are you trying to chase me away?" It had been 5 days since his first contact with Su Yi, but Su Yi had not given any clear answer to the agreement. No matter how stupid Mancini was, he knew that Su Yi was actually rejecting him. The only reason he didn't say it out loud was because he didn't want to refuse in person and embarrass Manager Mancini. Su Yi looked up to the sky and laughed. "Sir Steward, you misunderstand. How would I dare to chase you away? If you like, you can stay in Banta City for a bit longer. I think that Count will definitely welcome you." Manager Mancini looked at Su Yi and gave a cold laugh. "What about you?" "Me? There are many things I need to take care of at the company, so it isn't convenient for me to stay here." "So, cool. Sir Steward, please forgive me. If you have a chance to come to Banta City next time, or come to our new flyer, I will definitely entertain you." Manager Mancini gave a strong snort. "Chairman Su, it seems like you've already made your decision." Su Yi nodded with a faint smile, but he didn't say anything. Manager Mancini gave a cold laugh. "Chairman Su, Baron Belil has always said that you are a smart person, but in my eyes, you don't match his evaluation at all. There are many people who want to approach His Highness, but they can't do anything. Now that you've given up this chance, you are simply too stupid." Su Yi gave a shrug and didn't say anything with a faint smile. Su Yi didn't react, so Manager Mancini couldn't say anything else. After pausing, he gave another cold snort before continuing. "All right, Chairman Su, this is your choice. If the new flyer meets any problems in the Kanla Empire, don't blame me for not warning you ahead of time." Su Yi narrowed his eyes, thinking that this should be a naked threat. If Prince Frank really caused trouble for the new flyer because of this matter, then with this matter, it was enough to prove that His Highness wasn't a good person to cooperate with. Looking at it like this, the failure of this cooperation was actually a good thing. Manager Mancini, Su Yi paused. When he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a large pong sound. He and Manager Mancini looked at the center of the track in a daze. They saw the two magic sedans rolling at high speeds on the track, only stopping when they hit the wind-attributed magic array that had been placed on the track ahead of time. Looking over the two magic sedans, Su Yi was surprised, because one of them was driven by Baron Belil and the other was driven by Harvey Candy. Turning to Manager Mancini, he found that his face was very dark and there was a faint trace of anger in it. Su Yi couldn't help rolling his eyes. He thought that this collision before the race ended was the perfect result of his cooperation with Prince Frank. Everyone went their separate ways. Hashtag, 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 3 days later, Su Yi appeared in Baron Belil's private manor again. When he saw Baron Belil, he was lying on the bed, eating fruit with the help of a beautiful maid while moving his hands all over. When Su Yi came in and gave a cough, Baron Belil finally reacted and quickly took his hands back. "Cool. Chairman Su, why are you here? Where's the housekeeper? Why didn't he come to report?" Baron Belil asked in an awkward voice before waving his hand to have the maid leave. "The housekeeper said that you said that I didn't need to be reported." Su Yi moved to the side to let the red-faced maid leave before shaking his head at Baron Belil. "I wanted to see how your injuries were, but now it seems like you've recovered quite well." Baron Belil gave a dry laugh. "Huh, it's good. It's good." When a race was about to end 3 days ago, Harvey Candy had tried to overtake, but he accidentally collided with Baron Belil's magic sedan. It was a good thing that the two cars were equipped with wind-attributed magic arrays, so the two of them weren't in any danger. They only suffered some light injuries from the collision. Harvey Candy had been taken away by Manager Mancini's group the day before yesterday, and Baron Belil had been recovering in his private manor the entire time. "Right, Chairman Su, did you talk with Manager Mancini's group breakdown?" Baron Belil suddenly looked at Su Yi and carefully asked this. We couldn't reach an agreement, so we didn't cooperate." Su Yi replied with a nod. "This? Cool. Chairman Su, I'm not blaming you, but I feel that. Isn't your attitude towards Manager Mancini a bit too arrogant? Arrogant. Sue knit his brows. You don't think that Manager Mancini is arrogant, but you think that I'm arrogant? No, no. Manager Mancini is arrogant, very arrogant. But he is representing His Highness Frank, so it's normal for him to be a bit arrogant. But you want to cooperate with His Highness Frank, so there's nothing wrong with lowering your attitude, right? Seeing Baron Belil's disapproving expression, he shook his head and was too lazy to discuss this with him. He was very clear that the current situation of the world was like this. His Highness Frank was an aloof prince of the Canla Empire. In the eyes of others, he was just the chairman of a small company. So how could he care if the other side was arrogant or not? Let's not talk about this. Belil, I came looking for you today, not only to see how your injuries are, but also to discuss some proper business with you. Proper business? Belil was immediately jolted awake. He immediately sat up on the bed, but because of his wound, he sucked in a breath of cold air from the pain. However, this didn't affect the excitement in his eyes. He stared at Sue and asked, "What proper business?" Prince Frank's people didn't believe in Sue, but Baron Belil believed in Suyi's ability to make money. The proper business he was talking about was definitely going to make money. Including the competition 3 days ago, you've participated in many races organized by our company and privately organized by yourself, right? Sue asked. It's not a lot, it's a lot. Baron Belil flipped his palm 3 times. At least 150 times. Oh, that many. Then you must have a lot of experience in organizing races? Sue asked. It's all right, just a bit better than most people. Baron Belil chuckled. Good. If I want you to organize a proper race in the Canla Empire, do you have the confidence to do it? Sue asked seriously. Huh? Baron Belil looked at Sue in surprise. Chairman Sue, are you joking? Didn't you just have a breakdown with His Highness Prince Frank? Why do you want me to organize a race in the Canla Empire now? How is that possible? I only had a breakdown with His Highness Prince Frank, not a breakdown with the Canla Empire. Moreover, the one organizing the race is you and not me, not our new flyer. Do you understand what I mean? Baron Belil calmed himself and lowered his head to seriously consider it before the shock on his face slowly faded. This means you just want to organize a race in the Canla Empire? You don't care about anything else? It's pretty much like this. I can provide you with the initial funds, magic sedans, and even people and technology. But how to organize it and how to do it will depend on you. Sue said with a smile. How about it? Are you confident? Baron Belil curled his lips. Why don't you ask me if I'm willing first? Sue revealed a faint smile. Is there a need to ask this question? Baron Belil was surprised before breaking out in laughter. Right, there's indeed no need to ask this question because I will definitely do it. But Chairman Sue, as for how to do it, you need to give me some time to consider it. Of course there's no problem. Chapter 735. Leslie put down the letter in his hand and looked at the vast sea outside Nissy Harbor, letting out a long sigh. This letter was sent to him by the New Flyers Kingdom of Roar Branch. It came from Sue. It was a personal letter and didn't contain any official matters. In his heart, other than some daily greetings from Sue to Leslie, the most important thing was that Baron Belil was about to head to the Canla Empire to organize a series of racing events. After hearing this news from the letter, Leslie felt like a large stone had fallen from his heart, and he felt much more relaxed. Since the Stag family had been defeated in the Lampari Kingdom's civil war, the entire family was close to extinction. Other than Leslie, there was only Baron Belil and 2 other normal-looking juniors left. In this kind of cruel battle, the side that one wouldn't leave any descendants for the Stag family, but one, Her Majesty 70, was kind enough, and the second, which was the main reason, was Sue Yi's request. Because of Sue Yi, Her Majesty 70 went against everyone's wishes and left a few seeds for the Stag family, ensuring that the Stag family's bloodline didn't end because of this. It was because of this that Leslie felt grateful towards Her Majesty 70 and Su-yi. He was willing to accept Su-yi as the commander of the new Flyers Guard fleet, and even use some of the Stag family's remaining resources to help build the Guard fleet as soon as possible. This was also out of gratitude. As for Baron Belil, because of his relationship with the Stag family, him being able to live in the Lampuri kingdom was already Her Majesty 70's grace. As for him being able to live a better life with Su-yi's help and the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's joint venture factory, that was even better than before, which was even more unexpected. But Leslie had always been worried in his heart. Even if Her Majesty 70 was benevolent and agreed not to pursue the Stag family's descendants in the Lampari kingdom, there were people who were worried that the Stag family would cause trouble because of these people, so they suggested that Her Majesty 70 take forceful measures against them. So Baron Belil only seemed relaxed on the surface, but there were many things that he was restricted in. Perhaps he wasn't restricted that much in Bana City because of Su-yi, but if he left Bana City and went anywhere in the Lampari kingdom, he would be strictly controlled. Now that Su-yi had found something for him to do, as long as Baron Belil put his heart into it. With his relationship with the Kamla Empire's Prince Frank, it was very likely that he would be able to make a name for himself in the Kamla Empire. The Lampari kingdom would restrict Baron Belil's actions in the Lampari kingdom. But if he left the Lampari kingdom, there would be many people in the Lampari kingdom who would send him off. After all, from the perspective of the Lampari kingdom, this fellow who they had scruples about and couldn't directly deal with, being willing to leave the Lampari kingdom was simply a happy ending. Leslie was very clear that Su-yi was doing this for his own selfish reasons. Moreover, he had told Leslie in his heart that he wanted to use the relationship between Baron Belil and Prince Frank to promote the magic sedan in the Kamla Empire. But Leslie was very clear that Su-yi was helping Baron Belil by doing this. Not only did it give him a good reason to leave the Lampari kingdom, it also gave him a goal to work towards in the future. Leslie was very optimistic about the prospects of the magic sedan on the signs. So, as long as Baron Belil took care of this matter, he would have a chance to become someone with great influence in the future. So Su-yi had helped the Stag family quite a bit this time, allowing the Stag family's seed to flourish a bit more. But like this, it won't be easy for me to leave this fleet. Leslie suddenly gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. The more help he received from Su-yi, the heavier the responsibility in Leslie's heart became. He had wanted to help Su-yi build this guard fleet to gain experience on the sea before building his own fleet in the future, but now it was very hard for him to easily leave. Even if it didn't mention repaying Su-yi, just based on this guard fleet, Leslie's heart was already filled with deep feelings for it. It had only been a year since this guard fleet had been established, but whether it was during the initial preparation and training phase or when they went out to sea, Leslie had always been with the fleet and had never left. During this time, the new Flyer Guard fleet had swept through the southern seas of the Signs, experiencing countless battles and defeating countless pirate groups. Even if these battles were very easy, through these battles, everyone in the fleet was firmly connected and Leslie was an exception. Leslie was already used to this kind of life. If he suddenly left this fleet and this kind of life, he was very unwilling. All right, just let me stay a bit longer. When a guard fleet is a bit stronger and can control the southern seas, that fellow Sue, you should be able to develop the magic boats. There shouldn't be any problems if I leave at that time. Leslie looked at the vast sea in front of him and secretly made a decision in his heart. Sir, should we return to Thunderbolt Island first or wait at the rendezvous point? The captain of the flagship, the Windbreaker, who was also the adjutant of the new Flyer Guard fleet, Garn Sauron, was Leslie's assistant. Sauron came over and asked this. There's no need to go back. We've just finished resupplying at Nissi Harbor, so there's no need to waste time. Let's head to the rendezvous point. Leslie replied without turning back. Yes, Garn. Sauron left after replying. A moment later, the entire fleet made some slight adjustments and moved quickly toward the south. In around 3 hours, the fleet had already left the waters of the Kingdom of Ruhr and entered the waters of the Kamla Empire. Actually, for the countries on the Signs, the so-called national waters weren't a concept at all. Because of the lack of technology, the continent didn't have the ability to sail across the seas at all. Even in the coastal waters, they could only rely on some old wooden boats to barely interfere. They couldn't even control it, so naturally they couldn't define any seas. On the endless seas, it was basically a state of disorder. As long as you had a boat, anyone could sail across the seas, and you didn't need to worry about anyone controlling you. This was also the reason why there were so many pirates on the endless seas. But with the appearance of the new Flyer Guard fleet, it broke this fragile balance of chaos. With their battle strength that far surpassed normal wooden boats and their ability to sail, as well as their strong ability to resist waves, the new Flyer Guard fleet used less than half a year to defeat all the pirates in the southern seas of the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Canla Empire. Even if there were fish that escaped the net, with the powerful deterrence of the new Flyer Guard fleet, this large sea area had an unprecedented peace during this time. With the new Flyer's large transport fleet frequently sailing between the Principality of Constantine and the Kingdom of Ruhr, it also increased the speed of the entire sea route. Other than the new Flyer's large transport magic boats, there were many large and small wooden boats that passed through this sea route, greatly increasing the flow of goods between the two countries. Of course, the goods that flowed from the Principality of Constantine to the Kingdom of Ruhr were mainly household magic machines, steel, fertilizer, cement, and other industrial products made by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. At the same time, there were some canned fruits and lumber made from the fruits of the Principality of Constantine. The goods that flowed from the Kingdom of Ruhr to the Principality of Constantine were mainly mineral resources and magic crystals. These things were, of course, because of the needs of the new Flyer. Because of the prosperity of this sea route, the small coastal city of Nissi City was developing at a shocking speed. Although Nissi City couldn't compare to the capital Caracas City in terms of prosperity, it wasn't inferior to the flow of people and goods. The new Flyer's Guard fleet had to rely on the transport fleet led by Narvel before, but now that the new Flyer had signed a contract with the Kingdom of Ruhr, they could receive all kinds of supplies from Nissi City. 3 days ago, Leslie led the fleet into Nissi City's harbor, coming here for the monthly supply and also to give his subordinates a vacation. These fellows had been on the sea for a long time, so they needed to relax. Now that the supplies were over and they had left Nissi City, the guard fleet had to follow their orders and head to the designated location to complete their mission. This mission was very simple. It was to meet up with the new Flyer's second transport fleet in the Canla Empire seas and escort the second transport fleet to the southern seas of the Canla Empire, establishing the first stage of the sea bases on 3 islands. It seemed very simple, but Leslie, who had been active in the southern seas of the Canla Empire for half a year, was very clear that this mission was very troublesome. If they didn't handle it well, all their efforts in the southern seas of the Canla Empire would be wasted. However, the more serious the problem was, the happier Leslie was. If he bullied those pirates who couldn't resist, how could he display his value? How could he repay the help Sue he gave him and the Stag family faster? Chapter 736. After entering the southern seas of the Canla Empire for around 4 hours, the guard fleet stopped at an island that was around 5-6 square kilometers in size. This island didn't have any mineral resources or any other resources worth mentioning, so it wasn't the target of the guard fleet at first. But 2 months ago, Sue had changed the sea strategy of the new Flyer. He was planning to build a chain of islands on the endless seas, connecting all the islands with resources and bringing them under his control. So for this island that didn't have any resources but was suitable for building a base, it was also included in the scope of his investigation. There were countless islands like this in the southern seas of the Canla Empire, so it was impossible to build a base on all these islands. After comparing all sides, Sue finally decided on this island and the 2 islands that were around 100 and 200 kilometers away from here as the first target according to Leslie's report. Although the new Flyer Guard fleet was already very active in the southern seas of the Canla Empire, strictly speaking, building a base on these 3 islands would mean that the new Flyer had officially entered the seas of the Canla Empire. Although the countries of the continent didn't have a clear concept of their seas. This place was only 100 kilometers away from the coast of the Canla Empire, so it could be considered under the control of the Canla Empire's navy. The new flyer didn't notify the Canla Empire and build a base on these 3 islands, so it was hard to predict what kind of reaction the Canla Empire would have. After the guard fleet stopped near the island, it wasn't that they had nothing to do. They had several dozen small magic speedboats with over 100 sailors on board, transporting some of the construction materials they bought from Nissi Harbor to the island and building a simple residence on the coast. After around 2 hours before this simple residence was finished, there was a giant magic ship that was glowing silver in the sun that came from the sea to the west. Leslie led the guard fleet forward and saw the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's transport fleet's manager Narvel on the faraway, large transport magic ship that had just been built last month. The two of them didn't exchange too many pleasantries as they simply handed over their work. Then they put down all the small magic speedboats and transported the large amount of people and construction materials that came with the far expansion to the island. These people weren't just people from a new flyer. There were also construction workers from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. These people's only goal in coming here was to build a harbor on this island. As long as they built the harbor first, it would be easier to transport the materials to the island, making it easier to build a base on the island. Similar island bases had already been built on the southern seas of the Kingdom of Ruhr, so there was no need for Narvel and Leslie to give any orders. Whether it was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce or the New Flyers people, they were all very familiar with the initial construction. There was a row of simple houses that were quickly built on the coast, and then the first batch of construction workers from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce brought their daily necessities in. According to the plan, starting tomorrow, they would stay on this island for at least 3 months until they finished building the harbor and the island base. Then they would enter the next phase according to the situation. After staying on an originally uninhabited island for so long and having to work hard every day, the living environment was naturally extremely harsh. However, whether it was the construction workers from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce or the people from the New Flyer, there wasn't a single person who had a look of resentment. Rather, they were all very enthusiastic with smiles on their faces. Working here was a bit hard, but they could at least get a salary of 30 gold coins a month. Because they were working in a rush, there was quite a bit of overtime. Adding in the overtime, they could even get 50 gold coins a month. Just this was a large amount of money. Not to mention that other than this, the New Flyer gave them all kinds of subsidies. For example, because the southern seas were very hot, they would give them 3 gold coins a month as a high-temperature subsidy. At the same time, because the living conditions here weren't good and the work was hard, they would give them 5 gold coins a month as a nutrition subsidy. Adding in some other subsidies, if they converted it to money each month, it would be at least 10 gold coins. With this kind of shocking treatment, no matter how hard the work was, what did it count for? Hey, Narvel, do you see that? This is the benefit of having money. Leslie looked at the workers working on the island and shrugged as he spoke to Narvel beside him. As long as we give them enough money, I think they're willing to sell their lives to the company. It's not that hard to use money to buy a life. Narvel glanced at Leslie. Leslie glanced at Leslie. On Karaska Island 5 years ago, as long as you took out 10 gold coins, you could buy a life on the island. Leslie looked at Narvel and was speechless. He knew that Narvel came from Karaska Island and knew that Karaska Island used to be called the Island of Pirates. The island was filled with criminals, so it wasn't strange to buy a life for 10 gold coins. But now that he heard Narvel say it himself, he felt that it was very strange. If it wasn't for Chairman Sue and the New Flyer changing the lives on the island, the current Karaska Island wouldn't be any different from before. Narvel suddenly gave a soft sigh as he spoke in an emotional voice. Actually, not to mention Karaska Island 5 years ago. Even now, if you take 10 gold coins to any other country on the continent, you can easily buy a life. Leslie was silent for a bit before giving a soft nod. After staying in New Flyer for a long time, it gave him an illusion that the lives of the people around him had become very good. Everyone didn't have to worry about food and clothing, and this world was much better than before. But in reality, other than the places affected by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, even in the surrounding countries, there were still some places where people couldn't even solve the most basic problem of food and clothing. As for the entire signs, there were also countless places where countless people were still suffering from starvation and living in hardship. Leslie had advised Sue E before that he didn't need to work so hard and that he should learn to enjoy life, but he had been rejected by Sue E. Leslie had thought that Sue E was simply a workaholic and didn't know how to enjoy life at all. Now that he was talking to Narvel, he suddenly realized that the reason why Sue E was a workaholic was because the goal in his heart was too far. He worked so hard because he hoped that everyone on the continent could enjoy a better life as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Leslie couldn't help feeling a bit ashamed. In his more than 35 years of life, this was the first time he had ever felt ashamed. Actually, I've advised Sir Chairman before that we can buy some slaves from other countries and have the slaves do the work. That way we could save quite a bit of money. If we really want to build this base, we'll need to spend at least 300,000 gold coins. If we use slaves, we can save several tens of thousands of gold coins in wages. Narvel added. It's impossible for him to agree. Leslie shook his head. Sue, he hates the existence of slaves the most. He has told me many times that if he had enough money, he would buy all the slaves on the continent and restore their freedom. Now that you're telling him to buy slaves, it would be strange if he didn't scold you. Although Sir Chairman hasn't directly scolded me, I can see that he is very angry, so I won't mention this matter in front of him again. Narvel nodded. But Sir Leslie, I've always been considering a problem. What problem? It's not a problem that our Frestag Chamber of Commerce doesn't use slaves as workers, but if the other companies use large amounts of slaves, their labor costs will be much lower than ours, so their things will be much cheaper than ours. Right now, because the quality and performance of our company's things are much better than the other companies, this isn't a problem. But in the future, if the quality and performance of the other companies isn't bad, then our company will face a large problem. Leslie was a bit surprised. It was like meeting Narvel for the first time as he looked over him. How did you think of this problem? When I was in Nissi Harbor, I met the chairman of a magic machine company in the Kingdom of Rur. His company had bought some slaves as workers, and he had bragged in front of me before. After that, I kept thinking about this problem, and the more I thought about it, the more serious it was. Sir Leslie, you have a good relationship with Sir Chairman. Can you remind him of this? Leslie knit his brows. After thinking about it, he slowly shook his head. I'm afraid it's no use. Sue, he is a person who sticks to his principles. I remember that when New Flyer was just built, I sent a group of my slaves to work in his factory. At that time, his attitude towards these slaves was different from others. I think that if it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't strong enough, he would have bought those slaves from me and given them back their freedom. This was Narvel's first time hearing about New Flyer being built. He couldn't help opening his eyes wide and focusing on Leslie, afraid that he would miss a single word. Then look at it now. In the entire New Flyer, there are close to 100,000 workers, but there isn't a single slave. Even the 2 slave maids by his side have been given back their freedom. He is even pushing a bill in the Principality of Constantine, planning on getting rid of all slaves in the Principality of Constantine. Do you think that he would accept hiring slaves as workers? Narvel was silent for a bit before shaking his head with a bitter smile. Then what do we do? If Sir Chairman isn't willing to use slaves, our company will be at a disadvantage compared to other companies in this aspect. How we solve this problem? Leslie paused for a bit before suddenly breaking out in laughter. He forcefully patted Narvel's shoulder and said, All right, if you can think of this problem, how could Sue not have thought of it? The 2 of us have been discussing and worrying for a while, but perhaps Sue already has a solution in his heart. I've already known this fellow for 6 years, and I've never seen him stumped by a problem. So let's not worry here. Narvel tilted his head to think before nodding with a faint smile. That's right. Sir Chairman doesn't need us to worry. We just need to believe in him and do as he says. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.